On behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, on behalf of the Management Committee of the Bangalore branch of ICAI, I extend a warm welcome to this awareness program on analysis of Union Budget 26-27. At the outset, may I request Chairman C. Manjunath Hallu to kindly escort the dignitaries to the dais. C. Mohandas Pai sir, Padamchand Khincha sir, R.K. Misra sir, Vaitheeswaran sir, and Siddharth Pai sir. So we are all honored to have you amongst us today, our distinguished moderators and panelists. And please offer them floral bouquets. We are all grateful to all the moderators and panelists. I'm sure their insights will help us, all the members, students, and the participants from the public understand the key proposals, implications, and opportunities arising of the Union Budget with clear practical intakes. A warm welcome, as well as all the members and students who have joined in large numbers today. Thank you all for your committed support and participation in the knowledge initiatives of the branch. Now, I request Chairman C. Manjunath Hallu to give his welcome address.
Good evening, Namaste. A very warm welcome to one and all present here. Nations are not built merely by policies and promises, but by professionals who translate economic vision into fiscal discipline, transparency, and trust. On behalf of Bangalore branch of SIRCF ICAI, I, C.A. Manjunath Hallu, Chairman of Bangalore branch, have a proud privilege to welcome this August gathering to our annual Union Budget Analysis Program, convened on the very next day of the presentation of Union Budget by the Honorable Finance Minister of India. The Union Budget is not merely a financial statement, it is a reflection of the nation's priorities, aspirations, and economic philosophy. It shapes policy, influences markets, guides industry, and impacts every citizen. In such a context, informed interpretation becomes as important as the numbers themselves. And that is precisely why this forum has remained relevant, respected, and revered over the years. Today's program holds a special significance. For over 3 decades, the budget analysis has been continuously moderated with rare consistency, intellectual depth, and independence of thought by two towering personalities of our profession and public life. Two moderators par excellence, C.A. V Mohandas Pai. When he speaks, governments respond, both state government and central government. And my guru, C.A. Padamchand Khincha sir. When he speaks on direct taxes, even the ruling party MPs and opposition party MPs choose silence because they were busy assimilating his interpretations. Members, I have personally witnessed this during the visit of Select Committee of Parliamentarians to Bangalore for discussion on the New Income Tax Act 2025. I welcome you, both of you, sir, from bottom of my heart. Their unwavering commitment to decoding the budget with clarity, courage, and conviction has transformed this event into a benchmark forum, one that the profession, industry, academia, and the general public look forward to year after year. This remarkable continuity itself is a testament to credibility earned over time. We are equally honored today by the presence of an eminent panel of scholars, academicians, economists, industry leaders, business tycoons, and distinguished professors, to say it shortly. Shri R.K. Misra sir, and again my guru, Shri Advocate Vaitheeswaran sir, and CA Siddharth Pai. Their diverse perspectives ensure that budget is not viewed in isolation, but examined through the lenses of policy, economics, enterprise, governance, and societal impact. I welcome all the esteemed panelists to this program. Delegates, a lot of effort go into preparation of this program, and I welcome the whole team led by CA S. Krishnan sir, CA Mayank Manoj sir, CA Shivram RD, Mr. Ravi Sidula, CA Shweta Devadiga, CA D. Hari Krishna sir. I welcome you all for this program. This program exemplifies the role of chartered accountant as a thought leader, not just as an interpreter of law or numbers, but as a trusted advisor to business, government, and society at large. By opening this forum to both chartered accountants and the general public, the Bengaluru branch continues its legacy of knowledge dissemination, public engagement, and nation building. I would like to place it on record that record number of delegates registered for this today's program. By 3 o'clock today, it was 779 registrations, and there were so many spot registrations also. Many students and enthusiasts have come without registration also. Delegates, students, and participants, my sincere and heartfelt welcome to all of you for your presence today. Your presence reinforces the relevance of informed dialogue in shaping responsible economic disclosure. With this, I once again welcome you all and look forward to an evening of insightful deliberations, meaningful debate, and enduring takeaways. Thank you and have a truly enriching session. Jai Hind, Jai ICI.
Thank you, Chairman, for that address. I would like to introduce our today's moderators and panelists. Moderator par excellence, V Mohandas Pai. Over a career of spanning 40 years, Mohandas Pai has served in the areas of finance, accounting, information technology, human resources, education, corporate governance, social impact, innovations, environmental conservation, policy formulations, heritage preservations, philanthropy, and the ventures and startup ecosystems. Mohan sir is currently the chairman of Aryan Capital, member of the board of Havels India, and the member of high-level advisory committee of IFSCA and Gift City. He was awarded the Padma Shri Award by the President of India 2015 and the Karnataka Rajyotsava Award 2008. Mohan sir was previously a board member of and the chief financial officer of Infosys over a span of 17 years, an investment committee member of the SIDBI India Aspiration Fund and a 10,000 fund of fund accounts, a board member of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, a board member of the National Stock Exchange of India and the Ascendance Property Fund, trustee of the International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation, governing council member of the Center for Advanced Financial Research and Learning, promoted by RBI, chairman of the FICCI Skill Committee and Higher Education Committee, president of All India Management Association, and founder trustee of Akshay Patra Foundation. Mohan sir holds a bachelor's degree in commerce as a university rank holder from St. Joseph College of Commerce, Bangalore, and a bachelor's degree in law from Bangalore University, and is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India as a All India rank holder. With that small introduction, I introduce before you CA Mohandas Pai. Now, I would like to introduce our second moderator, par excellence, CA Padamchand Khincha sir. I'm extremely happy to introduce the moderator, CA Padamchand Khincha sir. Padamchand Khincha sir is a commerce graduate from the University of Bangalore, securing 5th rank at the university levels. He holds a bachelor's degree in law. He's qualified as a chartered accountant in 1982 by securing the 25th rank. Padam sir is a partner of HC Khincha and Co. Bangalore. Over 40 years of experience in corporate and international tax regime, he has spearheaded the income tax consultancy and litigation practices. He has represented large corporates in some of the high-profile cases before various income tax tribunals across India and has been associated with several landmark decisions too. Padam sir is a prolific writer and on various topics in income tax. He has co-authored Tax Holiday under Section 40A and 40B, an analysis, Tax Treaties of India, a compilation, capital gains of non-residents, tax deduction at source, concepts of indexation under capital gains. He was instrumental in making critical analysis of the direct tax code as a member of the team constituted by ICAI on the request of CBDT. With that brief introduction, I present before you CA Padamchand Khincha sir. It's my privilege to introduce our panelists today. CA R.K. Misra sir. Sorry. Mr. R.K. Misra. Mr. R.K. Misra is a Bangalore-based entrepreneur, public policy expert, an institution builder working in the intersections of technologies, mobility, and governance. An IIT Kanpur graduate with a master's degree in urban planning and transportation from the University of Tokyo. He is alumnus of Harvard Kennedy School and a global business fellow of the Aspen Institute, USA. R.K. Misra is a non-resident scholar on Carnegie India, where he focuses on technology and public policy and serves as a convener of the annual Carnegie Global Technology Summit. He is co-founder at Yulu, India's largest shared electronic mobility platform, founder-director of Center of Smart Cities, a co-chairman of ASSOCHAM South. Earlier in his career, R.K. Misra founded multiple telecom and digital ventures with global operations, including Tenant Technologies and India's first travel portal, travelins.com. Since 2005, he has been actively engaged in public policy, governance, and development through Sayog, working with governments, industrial bodies, and global institutions on sustainable urban development, mobility, and economic growth. With that brief introduction, I present before you R.K. Misra sir. Now, I would like to introduce another panelist, Advocate K. Vaitheeswaran sir. Advocate and tax consultant, Mrs. K. Vaitheeswaran is a senior advocate with over 35 years of experience in domestic and international taxation and allied laws. A law graduate from the Madras Law College, he enrolled as an advocate in 1990 and also holds CWA, ACS qualifications. He advises and appears before appellate tribunals and court across India in matters relating to taxation, GST, VAT, customs, excise, international tax, corporate law, FEMA, RERA, IBC, and technology laws. He is the author of several authoritative books, including VAT in India, Taxation of Digital Economy, and works on SENVAT credit and CA final taxation, and has written extensively in print and digital media. His firm operates from Chennai and Bangalore, serving clients nationwide. A recognized expert in GST, business restructuring, real estate, the technology contracts, he is a member of the Tamil Nadu Government GST Advisory Council. Chairman of the GST Expert Committee of the Madras Chamber of Commerce, resource person at the National Judicial Academy, a guest faculty at Shastra Law School. He is also actively involved in professional, academic, and social initiatives. With that brief introduction, I present before you K. Vaitheeswaran, sir. I would like to introduce the third panelist, CA Siddharth Pai. CA Siddharth Pai is a co-founder, partner, chief financial officer, and ESG officer at 314 Capital and early stage venture capitalist fund based in Bangalore, India, and GIFT IFSC, India, with the AUM over $500 million. 314 Capital is the first VC signatory for the India at the UNRPI. Siddharth works extensively on policy and growth of Indian startups and alternative investment industry. He is the youngest member of the SEBI AIPAC Alternative Investment Policy Advisory Committee, created to work with regulatory on the ordered growth of Indian AIF industry. Siddharth is also a youngest executive council member of the AVCA, Indian Venture Capital Association, the capital body for Indian funds investing in alternative assets, and serves as a co-chairman of the Regulatory Affairs Council, working on matters related to security matters, security markets, alternative investment funds, taxation, foreign exchange laws, and startups. He is a founding member and vice president of the PEV CFOA, a collective of CFOs on venture capital and private equity funds investing in India, and is part of the Startup Council of CII and AIMA. He is an expert policy member of IS Print, the Indian Software Product Industry Roundtable, a Bangalore-based think tank. Siddharth completed his BCom from St. Joseph College of Commerce, Bangalore, and is a qualified chartered accountant. With that brief introduction, I present before you CA Siddharth Pai. Members, as a tradition, we are now heading towards lighting of the lamps. I request members on the dais to join us, as well as our management committee members and regional council members to join us for the lighting of the lamp.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः सर्वे तदूनात्यधिकश्चन एतद्वैत 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 एतद्वैत.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll straight away start with the Union budget analysis. This budget, the sustainability over spectacle, strategy over short-sightedness. The Union budget is a budget for Viksit Bharat 2024. It's a long-term budget looking at 2024, a Viksit Bharat committing budget beyond next fiscal. It is a track-driven, secure, self-reliant, and futuristic budget. The government has downplayed the budget. It is a stable country. We have inflation under control. There is price stability. We increase in capital expenditure. The fiscal consolidation is fantastic, and the drivers of domestic growth are placed and intact. We are looking at Atmanirbhar Bharat. The fiscal deficit is at 4.3%. Debt to GDP is 5.6%, and overall capital expenditure is increased. Defense expenditure has increased by 18 to 20%. With that, I would like to request all the panelists and the moderators to take up. Thank you.
Folks, thank you for being here. First, apologies for the delay. There was some confusion about time. I hope you'll forgive us for the slight delay. Now, this is about the budget and about the economy of this country. We are a large country, 1.4 billion people, 1.42 billion people. Population is only growing at 0.88%. By 2035, the population of South India will start shrinking. Today, we have 13 crore people above the age of 60. By 2030, we'll have 20 crore people above the age of 60. We are an aging country. We are a young country right now, but going to be an aging country. Life expectancy is only 74 years for females. Females live longer. Literacy 80%. And for 26, export imports are around 851 billion for export services and goods. Imports 950 billion. We got foreign exchange reserves of 700 billion. This is a big country. We must not read the newspapers and believe that we are not doing well. We are doing very well. Government external borrowing is very low at $168 billion and total external debt 746. The big problem we have is we have got a high interest payments on our internal debt, and our total interest payment is 26% of our total budget receipts. Next. And you can see GDP, $4 trillion. GDP is $4 trillion. We're the fifth largest country in GDP, but we're still a poor country. Our per capita income is only $2,800. You'll all be very happy that Bangalore per capita income is $15,000. Bangalore GDP is about $190 billion out of Karnataka's 345. And for a population of 1.2 crore, 1.3 crores, about $15,000. We are the richest city in India, with the richest state in India in per capita terms. So we must tell our Chief Minister that we are the richest state and 80% of people should not get a ration card. Because all your money is going there. Yeah. Now, come back, please, come back. PPP is $19 trillion, third largest in the world. PPP is a measure of the value of a basket of goods and services, and that is more in comparison because the prices are very low in India compared to the United States or elsewhere. This year we're growing 7.4, 7.5%, which is not small. We're the fastest growing large economy in the world. And if you look at the last 5 years, the growth has been pretty good. And I think next year too, hopefully we'll grow 6.5 7%. And the budget says will grow between 6.8 to 7.2% in real terms and 10% in nominal terms. The difference is expected to be the inflation rate as per the economic survey and budget. Next. Now this is something you must see. 1991 we opened up and the growth has been very good. Its population grew at 1.4% a year and we are seeing a GDP growth rate at 8.1% a year from 1991 till 2026 in dollar terms. We have grown between 1991 and 2026 for about 35 years at 8.1% a year, which is very, very high. We've done very well. Some applause, please, for the country. Per capita income has grown at 6.6%. The balance is the population growth rate. Export imports in double digits. And, of course, the rupee has depreciated. If the rupee had not depreciated, it will be 10, 15, 20 trillion dollars. China's currency did not depreciate for 20 years. Our savings rate is good. Investment is 31% of GDP. We invest $1.2 trillion on capex every year. People tell you there's no investment happening in India. It's happening. They don't read the right amount of data because the data is published every quarter. Next. Next, please. Yes. And this is an interesting slide. How much does India contribute to incremental global growth? We contribute 17% to incremental global growth. China, India contribute 43.6% of growth. This IMF data. IMF. So we have to believe IMF, right? So IMF data, we contribute 17% to the incremental growth. China is the big beast. US is about 10%. There are only three big countries in the world. China, United States, and India. And you can see here how others are small countries. And all these small countries lecture India how we have to grow. Next. And we are about, we are about 20, we are about 26 years, 27 years, 17 years, 18 years behind China. We opened up in 1991, China opened up in 1978. So we are behind China, and China grew at 9.9% for 40 years. We have grown at about 8.1% for about 35 years. And India could be, $10 trillion by 2035. We have to grow to 10 to 11% CAGR, and it has to be in dollar terms. If the rupee does not depreciate, we could be $10 trillion. So next 10 years, we could have the highest growth in total GDP in the next 10 years. I hope all of you become millionaires and billionaires in the next 10 years, because there's going to be so much opportunities for all of you. Next. The IMF says that India is going to be the fastest growing large economy in the world, 7.2% next year. You can see other countries too. The world is not growing very well. In fact, China has got a problem. China's population shrank by 3.5 million last year. They only produced 7.9 billion babies. India does a very good job. We produce 23 million babies. We've been producing 2.5 crore babies a year for 30 years. Now it's coming down. It's coming down because young people are doing more interesting things in social media. Next. And you can see the world is changing. And that's why we have geopolitics. That's why President Trump is doing what he is, twisting everybody's arms to put levies on imports into the United States. And you can see here that this decade will find a shift of economic power from the OECD to the emerging markets. Even though will not be larger, incrementally there'll be more growth happening in the emerging markets than in the OECD. And this is an interesting slide because the OECD, the developed countries will only grow 2.3%, and Europe will not grow much. Europe is now tying up with India. I think these are all important matters for us to consider. We have to work very hard. All of you work more than 70, 80 hours a week, right? Am I right? Yeah, and we have to work hard, and if you want to do well. Chartered accountants work very, very hard. Next. India, China. We can only compare ourselves with China because our population is similar. China's population is less than India. We overtook China. We're the country with the largest population in the world. And if you look at undivided India, 1.4 billion people here, Pakistan, I think, was about 220 million. Bangladesh must be 180. That's 400 million. We have 1.8 billion people on this subcontinent. 1.8 billion people. More than China, more than any country in the world. With the largest number of people born in this undivided India before partition. Now, if you look at China, China's literacy is 96.8% because when Mao took over in 1949, he educated China's women. He said, women hold up half of heaven. Nehru did not educate our women. Literacy in 1991 was 41%. Even now, women literacy is lower. So we suffer because our first Prime Minister did not educate our women, and that is hurting us in terms of a larger population and lesser literacy and lesser productivity. China has $20 trillion in GDP. PPP is the largest economy in the world at 41 trillion. United States about 32. We are number 3 at 19. Per capita income, China is about 4.5 times what India is. Export-import, China is the largest economy in the world, largest reserves in the world, and it's got a debt to GDP of 96%. External debt for China is very low. So China has grown very well. Are we going to be a China? No. We can't be a China. China has 30% of global manufacturing. The world cannot have two Chinas. The world can have only one China. So our growth path will be very, very different. But China's population is shrinking, and they say by 2100, China's population, 1.4 billion, could be between 525 to 575 million. What happens to a country, the population starts shrinking every year? It's unbelievable, right? The lesser people every year. Next. And now we come to the first video. So we'll talk to the Prime Finance Minister. Yes, Finance Minister, tell us your budget.
We have pursued far-reaching structural reforms, fiscal prudence and monetary stability, whilst maintaining a strong thrust on public investment. Keeping Atmanirbharta as a lodestar, we have built domestic manufacturing capacity, energy security, and reduced critical import dependencies. Simultaneously, we have ensured that citizens benefit from every action of the government, undertaking reforms to support employment generation, agricultural productivity, household purchasing power, and universal services to people. These measures have delivered a high growth rate of around 7% and helped us make substantial strides in poverty reduction and improvement in the lives of our people.
Our economy, next please. Our economy is the fastest growing among all major economies. In the last 11 years, we have done very well. That's what this government says. We become the 4th largest economy. So Vaitheeswaran, do you think that we will realize Vikshit Bharat by 2047 based on the growth rates right now? Are we on the right path?
Thanks, and very good data to work on. This is very nice to talk about a year of 2047 when we are in 2025, because for the simple reason that I don't know whether I'll be there.
No, many of them may not be there.
Many of them may not be there. And even if somebody is there, nobody is going to hold back on the promise. I distinctly remember some years back, we had a target of 5 trillion economy. And suddenly it was completely forgotten. That slogan of 5 trillion was completely forgotten. And now we are fixed on 2047, which is quite far away.
But 5 trillion was at 75 rupees to a dollar before COVID for 2025.
Right.
Sanjeev Sanyal gave the figure.
Okay. So then 2047 with this growth is going to be tough because you're looking at 10 to 11%, which as you rightly put it. And I have a different take on this. You fix a beautiful target, you want to achieve something for the country, great, laudable, fantastic goal. But execution is lacking, and this policy doesn't get translated to everybody down. So you can't have a 2047 growth of this and do retrospective amendment to legislate, lethargy of income tax officers. Okay, that's precisely what all these retrospective amendments are up to. You can't nullify treaties through arguing in court saying circulars which I gave are no longer binding. You can't say that DIN is mandatory, but no, I will myself say DIN is not mandatory. You can't do all that. So you need to also translate that in terms of action, in terms of policy, and everybody must be sold on this vision. Then we can at least go somewhere near.
RK?
Hello. I think whatever my colleague has just said, I think there's a lot of truth in it. Politicians always are supposed to be the motivators because they themselves don't know whether they'll be there after 3 or 5 years. So motivation as a nation is important because if you don't believe in something, you won't even aspire for it. So it's very important that we have something. Otherwise, if you are negative about life, I think your outlook and your enthusiasm will be less. Having said that, what is Viksit Bharat? I don't think our Prime Minister or anybody has actually defined what is Viksit Bharat. Is Viksit Bharat per capita income of $10,000? Or Viksit Bharat is everybody having house, education, health, livelihood of certain quality. Rice in India may cost you 10 rupees, in US may cost you $5. So comparing the GDP in US is, I think, meaningless. And as you rightly said, our rupee has depreciated. But India is a very domestic-driven consumption economy. So rupee depreciation is not disproportionately affecting us on daily life. Our idli doesn't go expensive because rupee has gone down. Correct? So from that point of view, I think India is doing much better than what these numbers show, what we are looking in terms of the GDP in terms of dollar. So I think the number which you showed about the PPP, that's the right number, and with that number we are already 20 trillion economy. And China is 40. So if you look at dollar, because China did not allow their currency to go down for 20, 30 years, and we had a free floating currency, which today is helping also a little bit because our exports are competitive. So in PPP terms, we are just half of China. Whereas in dollar terms, we are 1/5 of China. So from that point of view, I think India has done much better than we actually give credit for. I believe, I don't know if I'll be there in 2047, but my both sons are back in India from US. And they're working and doing, and very happy. So I believe, they believe in Viksit Bharat because I did not force them to come back. They chose to come back, they were in US, they got educated there and both are back. So I think that generation believes in Viksit Bharat than maybe our generation who essentially have seen different times. Thank you.
Siddharth, now, amongst all of us, you are the one who's got to make it happen. You and your peers here. Prime Minister has given us the vision. Do you think we'll achieve all this and we'll really have a developed country by 2047? And what will you do to make it happen?
I think it's fantastic. All the old people always keep the assets to themselves and leave the liabilities to the future generation. But yeah, as one of the people who will end up actually most probably being around in 2047, I think the chances are actually very good. But in order for that to happen, I think, we have the optimism, we have the currency manipulation and whatever else you want to end up putting over there. And let's face it, you can put, the greatest fiction is actually written on Excel. So you can always slice the data to say that we've already reached this particular number, etc. I think Viksit Bharat's more a phenomenon of how day-to-day life ends up actually being for everyone. I think that's actually going to be the fundamental part because the average person on the street doesn't care if our GDP is 4 trillion, 8 trillion, 10 trillion. They're actually going to care about the fact that do we get access to services? Do I have to end up actually paying a bribe? Is the ease of living actually available for people? I think for that, the biggest detriment to us actually achieving Viksit Bharat is actually the government by itself. We can't have the aspirations of a $10 trillion economy with the regulations of a $500 billion economy. We are yet to actually, even though we had 1991, which was the economic liberalization, the government is yet to actually shed this entire mentality of controlling the entire economy. If you look at what happened with buyback taxation, for example, it's the categorical example of a situation where something meets the definition of a capital gains and a capital asset, which is a share, getting extinguished, which is a transfer, for a gain, which is the income that you make. But they decided it's actually the accumulated profits of the company being distributed, therefore it's a dividend. If you have a government that can just through language convert black to white, where is the consistency going to follow? And for Viksit Bharat to even come up, the most important thing we actually need is capital. China grew from the accumulated savings they got by suppressing local wages, exporting a large amount of it out, and thereby actually growing their economy. As a market-driven economy where every single election there's actually freebies actually being given out, the quality of spending has to actually increase. But in order for that quality of spending to actually end up increasing, we do need the government to actually let market forces take its way. We have a government wherein if a murder happens, they don't actually try to put the criminal into jail. They actually go and write a new law to catch a particular criminal. So the consistency that is required for capital, for investors to allocate capital doesn't actually exist. And what Sir actually brought up about the Tiger Global case, hopefully we'll go into it at some point in time. If people don't trust the government to actually deliver on its word, to actually give you a consistent path, not to pull the rug out from under you in the next 5 to 6 to 7 years, we'll never be able to grow. Indians will grow. If you look at the 30% of all the entrepreneurs and founders in Silicon Valley are either Indian or Indian origin. You look at the Fortune 500 companies as well, majority of them are either Indian or Indian origin in terms of their CEOs. If you look at the CIOs, the CXOs across the world, India ends up actually dominating. So Indians will dominate that area. The problem is, it's the hardest for an Indian to actually thrive in India. We can actually thrive in the rest of the world. So when you look at that, the most common factor actually comes down to is our government. Unless we actually see a change in the way the politicians end up actually creating laws, the courts end up actually enforcing laws, and the tax department and others end up actually sending the orders and actually conducting themselves properly. Viksit Bharat will once again remain one of those pipe dreams that people end up actually smoking, and by 2047, the people who created it won't be around. By the time my generation becomes older, we'll create a new pipe dream, and we'll end up actually passing that over. So hope exists. I think we're seeing a generation now who's actually given up on all the mistakes made by the previous generations also for that matter. We'll make our new mistakes. That's fairly obvious. Our children will hold us accountable for that. But yeah, we'll achieve Viksit Bharat in our own way with better branding.
Well. RK, before you go to the next topic, a quick one. You live in Outer Ring Road.
Yeah.
Outer Ring Road has 93 million square feet of grade A office space, the largest quantum of real estate office block in the world for any street. 9 lakh people work there. More than 1,000 companies work there. You spend 2 to 3 hours sitting in the car on traffic there. Will there be Viksit Bharat and Outer Ring Road at least?
Actually, Outer Ring Road has become too Viksit. That is the reason for this jam. If there were not 9 lakh people whose average salary is 20 lakh per month in the 9-kilometer stretch, if there was no 93 million real estate at 120 rupees per square feet, where the prestige CEO himself accepted in front of Priyank Kharge, oh sir, my annual rent from these offices is 1,000 crores. So Priyank said, oh, thank you, told me, now I remember for the next election. So essentially, because Outer Ring Road is so Viksit, we have this problem. The reason why this problem is not going to away, because no politician lives beyond MG Road. East of MG Road, there is no politician, except Ramlinga Reddy, who is south of Hosur Road. So between Hosur Road and Old Madras Road, there is no politician who lives. Even my own MLA of Mahadevpura lives in Indiranagar. Okay? So Limbhavali lives in Indiranagar. So there is no politician who lives. Most of the people who live there are actually migrant labor and the workers of IT. So there is no political representation. If you tell even D.K. Shivkumar or Siddaramaiah, whom I have taken 3 times to Outer Ring Road, oh, this also exists. So their life is, Sadashiv Nagar and Vidhan Saudha and those kind of places. I think Bangalore essentially needs to, and of course, I'm sorry to say that many other cities have done much better in terms of infrastructure. You go to Lucknow, you go to Nagpur, you go to Bhubaneswar, you go to Vizag, beautiful infrastructure. I think it is lack of focus, I think lack of desire to do it. I just got 450 crore from Deputy CM for improving that Outer Ring Road. But our bureaucracy is sitting. Today also I heard that he wants to delay it for like 6 more months. For what? So this is the problem of bureaucratic lethargy and political short-sightedness. They don't realize if you don't fix Outer Ring Road, there is no future for Karnataka's economy, because that's where the tax comes from. Bangalore in general contributes, as you know, more than 60% to the Karnataka's GDP. So if you kill Bangalore or don't take care of Bangalore, but despite Outer Ring Road, everybody coming to Bangalore, not because of the road, because of the people, the talent. Where in the country, if you start a GCC of 1,000 people, you can get all 1,000 people, the kind of people you want, of every qualification, of every, type of coding you need, or every, professional qualification. Only Bangalore can provide this. It is even better than Silicon Valley. Disney just came. Disney, which makes movie. 142,000 people of Disney are moving. Again, it's going to be chaos on Outer Ring Road in RMZ Eco World. 142,000 people they just announced. Of course, you cannot get out of the place. That's a different matter. Okay. So other day I came from Palm Retreat to my office, which is 3.5 kilometers. I took 55 minutes. So then I thought I'll stay in my other house, which is closer, but I'm going back to my, other house. So.
Well, that's the problem of India.
No, I think one of the reasons why Bangalore is such the startup capital of the world is because when the smartest people in the world are actually stuck in traffic, they have to do something besides actually looking at social media. So we think of fantastic ideas and we actually change the world. So Bangalore has a unique ability to take all our problems and end up actually turning them to solutions also.
Just add one point here. COVID taught us some lessons and we decided to do this virtual business and people started working from home and productivity was not really affected. We did whatever we had to deliver. But once COVID got over, most of the companies decided that as a mandate, you need to come back to office and drive this problem further. So we had a solution, but we decided to disregard the solution for whatever reason.
Well. Now let's come back to the Finance Minister. Yes, Finance Minister.
Under our first Kartavya, to accelerate and sustain economic growth, I propose interventions in 6 areas. 1. Scaling up manufacturing in 7 strategic and frontier sectors. 2. Rejuvenating legacy industrial sectors. 3. Creating champion MSMEs. 4. Delivering a powerful push for infrastructure. 5. Ensuring long-term security and stability. And 6. Developing city economic regions.
Thank you, Finance Minister. Now, folks, look at this. We are the 5th largest manufacturing power in the world. And we'll overtake Japan in the next 3 to 4 years. We are the 5th largest. Somebody in Delhi has been saying we don't manufacture, right? I hope some of you will send the data there. We are a big power. Next. And then in the budget, capital expenditure is going up to 17.1 lakh crores. 17.1 lakh crores, 12.2 lakh crores spent by the Government of India and 4.9 lakh crores by the extra budgetary internal resources of public enterprises. And it's gone up in the last 5 years from 8.4 lakh crores to 17.1 lakh crores. And that's a huge investment that's happening. Next. Capital expenditure percent of GDP has gone up from about 2.6% in 1920 to 4.4%. And GDP has also gone up. And this is pretty good because the capital expenditure is a function of how much money is spent by Government of India and also by the grant in aid given to the state governments from the central government. They're giving 50-year loans. I'll tell you a story. I went to the Prime Minister's office before COVID and met the Principal Secretary and told him Prime Minister is going to Japan. Asked the Prime Minister to tell the Japanese Prime Minister Abe, to allow us to borrow $500 billion of 30, 50-year loans. He was shocked. $500 billion. $500 billion. I said, yes, you borrow 30, 50-year loan and put into infrastructure, we'll develop. But please remember, the person who gave the loan and the person who has to pay back, both are not going to be around in 30 years. And that's what Japan does. They borrow 50 years, 30-year loans. Dhirubhai Ambani, I think Mukesh Ambani borrowed a 100-year loan. So smart people borrow 100-year loans. Next. And India is a strong agriculture base. Food grains, 353 million tons, second largest in the world. Milk now is 250 million tons, I think. This is last year's data. Cropland. We are the largest cropland for any country in the world. 219 million hectares. Cotton, second largest, 31 million. Horticulture, 367 million, second largest after Brazil. Sugar, largest. Spices, largest. Livestock, Largest in the world, 536 million. Is more than the population of most countries, all countries in the world except China, and they have full fundamental rights to wander into streets and do whatever they want. Next. Industrial base, coal, second largest after China, 1 billion tons. Iron ore, third largest, I think Australia, Brazil are ahead. Aviation, third largest, US, China, India. Railways, fourth largest because Russia is there. Roadways, second largest after, I think United States is number 1. We overtaken China. Ports, we must be among the top 5. Textiles, second largest after China. It's a very large industrial power. Next. And manufacturing, this is what the finance minister said. We want to develop India as a biopharma manufacturing hub because China is doing very well. To launch the India semiconductor mission, we are manufacturing 22 nm chips, nanometers chips. TSMC of Taiwan is doing 2 nanometers. They're 20 years ahead, but we are there. We're going to get there. Increase outlay to 40,000 crores for electronics, one dedicated rare earth corridor, program for labor-intensive textile sectors, domestic manufacture of high-quality advanced construction equipment, and a container factory, 10,000 crores. It's all peanuts. Next. 200 legacy industrial clusters. You must all go to Pina and see how Pina is. Hopefully, we'll get some money there. A 10,000 crore MSME fund is interesting. MSMEs will get equity support to grow. And a self-reliant fund, 2,000 crores more. And now this is an interesting thing. MSMEs suffered because big guys don't pay them, right? Big companies don't pay them in time. Public sector don't pay them in time. So there is a TREDS platform which you must tell your clients to use to discount your bills. And there, the public sector undertakings will all buy goods and put them on the TREDS platform to pay, to invoice discounting. And then we're going to have a scheme for insurance of risk so that money can be paid back there. And we're going to have a securitization of trade receivables. Next. Now, this is a question that I want to ask. RK, does the budget initiative for MSMEs make it more resilient? Do you think MSMEs will be improved by this? Because you are a techie, you've seen all this. Do you think it'll make a big improvement? And do you think the allocation is enough? Are they doing enough? And will they build resilience?
So I think, I've seen this. I think biggest challenge MSMEs have two. One is regulatory, and second is the capital, access to capital. I think MSMEs are the hardest working people. Starting from the founders themselves, they work very, very hard. Unfortunately, the infrastructure is something which is not in their control. You go and see any of our industrial parks, wherever you have, even in our own state, Pina or otherwise. So infrastructure is again in the government domain. Regulatory issues, they are really the ones who are harassed most because bigger companies can manage. That, I think, is something which some states have done it. As you know, UP has done a great job in terms of managing the MSME and a lot of labor reforms.
RK is an advisor to Chief Minister Yogi.
So is Mohan. So we are a team. We go everywhere together. Don't say that.
Speaking about UP.
Siddharth is saying nobody listens to Karnataka, so we went to UP.
No, we're all getting kicked out of Karnataka, so you know.
All right. No, we are advising here as well. Only thing is, people don't listen much. I think, but it's a good start, I would say, this 2,000 crore fund. But I think it's very small. Our country has close to around 70-80 lakh of MSMEs. UP alone has 9 lakh, the number we know. So I think, we do in a very, but I don't think even if they put 50,000 crore fund, there is a mechanism to distribute, and you have been, from SIDBI to everywhere else, our first NIAF fund and all that. I think the biggest challenge we have, even if government allocates the money, how does it reach to the right people at the right time? So I think, yes, it's a good start. There has to be, I think, another mechanism by which it's available on tap, whatever they need, based on their creditworthiness. But MSMEs are needed. But the biggest way to support MSME, I'll give you an example. If you go to Aerospace Park, which is near the airport, you will see companies whose names you would have never heard. That company might be making one little screw or wire for the Boeing. or Airbus. When you create industrial clusters like Japan does, Toyota will have around 2,000 companies around the Toyota factory. And they have brought something similar to Bidadi. We need those industrial clusters. In that system, I lived in Japan for 8 years. The funding for that comes from the big daddy. All the Toyota suppliers are never starved of funds because Toyota will make sure that they pay them because they need their parts. So I think the bigger industries will have to have, so these industrial cluster, be it textile, be it aerospace, be it engineering, there has to be a system where the system itself takes care of the credit and in the quality, which unfortunately Taiwanese do it. They always go in clusters. Koreans do it. That's why they have these Keiretsu, Zaibatsus. China, of course, is a big cluster. India needs to go to the cluster model. Otherwise, every industry will try to compete for the same pie, and then they will be either starved of the capital or the business. So I think this current model needs to change.
Vaitheeswaran, do you think you are from Tamil Nadu, right? Do you think this will be useful to the MSMEs there because you have a very large number of MSMEs in Tamil Nadu?
Large number of MSMEs, largest number of factories. First, let me bat for the manufacturer. I'm in this field for 35 years and handled clients from that segment for many number of years. Despite the government, they are surviving. They are in trouble from all quarters, from land, factory, pollution control board, the tax babus. All of them harass them in different forms. Goods cannot move out. It's not so easy. And then you have on top of it an MSME kind of a law, which is actually an insult, which says you pay within 45 days. You try enforcing 45 days to your customer. You lose the contract. So 45 days is on paper on the legislation, but no MSME will dare to go to court and enforce that particular 45-day principle because you lose the next order. So you have serious cash flow challenges. And if you look at the economic survey where Mr. Anant Nageswaran talks about resources being weaponized, I think GST has been weaponized against MSMEs.
Against MSMEs?
Yeah, I'll give you a classic example. I'm an MSME. I raise an invoice on my buyer. The buyer has a sweet 3 months, 4 months time to pay this invoice to me. Whereas I have to pay the GST next month. I have to struggle for cash flow to pay the GST for next month. And if I'm struggling because I have PF problem, ESA problem, labor problem, other problems, etc., and I default in payment of that particular tax, I cannot file the return because our GST law is such that unless you pay the tax, the return cannot be filed. If I don't file the return for 2 consecutive months, our portal decides that I'm not a fit assessee and cancels my registration. How do I do business? So we need to change all these things and look at it from their perspective. What is their problem? We could probably design a solution by saying that let the bigger buyer release the GST portion at least first instead of the entire money so the GST can be paid. Some kind of via media solutions have to be worked out so that government also gets the money and the MSC also survives in terms of cash flow.
So you're saying that nobody should take credit for the GST. Big companies have to pay the supplier GST almost immediately.
Because the law says that unless the GST is paid by the supplier, the department can reverse the ITC in the hands of the recipient. So the recipient is tremendous pressure to enforce the GST to pay the MSME to pay the GST, but he never releases the money to pay the GST. So it's a chicken and egg situation.
Siddharth, startups and small companies, they're also MSMEs, right? Do you think any of this will help? What is their problem?
Yeah, startups are MSMEs with better branding and larger capital raises, actually. So the issues faced by both MSMEs and startups are actually similar. But I think, if you actually go back to the budget speeches, I actually did this analysis a while ago also. The government has a very yo-yo effect when it comes to both MSMEs and startups. On every alternate budget, they talk about startups, and the other alternate budget, they end up actually talking about MSMEs. So there's some departmental war that's happening between DPIT and the department that looks after MSMEs. Both of them are trying to get their projects done. What ultimately matters is the common issues between the two of them are yet to actually end up getting solved between anyone that's there as of now. I'll give you an example. If you look at most of the MSMEs are actually family run. When the one generation wants to hand it over to the other generation and the next generation doesn't want to take it because children never actually listen to their parents once they get older, what do they actually do? They can't go through M&A because if they go through an NCLT process, it's next to impossible to end up doing it. Many of these MSMEs in the form of a general partnership or LLP, our laws don't even allow amalgamation to happen over there. The amalgamation process has to be done through professionals, a valuer, go through court, you have to spend large amount of fees. It's onerous to end up actually doing. Your carry forward of credit and everything as of now ends up actually getting stuck. So the MSME laws and the laws in this country are created to create this hodgepodge of cottage industries all over. We take pride in the fact that we have very small, inefficient enterprises. We actually need larger champions to end up actually coming up. And the budget has actually completely failed to actually estimate that. If you look at the allocations they make towards these funds and everything, they don't actually get used. When the revised budget estimate comes, they say so much has not been used, it's a saving to the government, we roll it over to the next year. The 10,000 crores is actually a drop. It's great allocation. How are they going to enforce it? Is there a mechanism created? Is there a fund manager they can end up actually putting it through? Is there a nodal agency that's been appointed to end up actually looking at it? Even when they do, they go to consultants, they write such absurd laws that in a universe basket of 100 MSMEs, 2 of them are the only ones who end up actually qualifying, for that matter. The other part, I think that's with regard to the resilience, competitiveness, and efficiency, or speaks about credit. RBI is amongst the worst central bankers when it comes to allowing people to actually take credit. For an MSME to get any amount of, or a startup to get any amount of credit, the first thing they ask for is, give me your house, give me your kidney, give me your blood sample, give me everything under the sun. How is an MSME supposed to actually go and raise? And your neighbors as collateral. How is an MSME supposed to raise if the only leverage they can get is equal to the assets they have on their balance sheet? It's absurd. And if you want to get a term loan, your payment of a term loan starts happening within 3 to 6 months. You don't have a moratorium. Who has ever created a factory within 3 months? It's impossible. Who started business during that part? It's impossible. If you miss 2 payments, you're granted an NPA, your assets are frozen, you're hauled over to IBC, everything actually breaks. So we suffer from a bureaucracy that has a theoretical understanding of business. Even GST also came about, someone had actually told me this, I forgot who. They put a bunch of babus in a room and said, here's your form, fill it up. None of them could fill it up. The Saral form happened after that, when they finally realized how absurd their own form filing system actually is. The same way with the laws. We don't have a mergers and acquisition law for any of these small companies. We have budgetary allocations done, but there's no last mile enforcement of the same. Payments is another thing. Even the 45 days begins from the date you issue the invoice. There are POs just floating about all over the place and people actually begging and pleading to actually give them money. It's next to impossible to end up enforcing. And you have larger companies who boast about the fact that they have a negative working capital. Why are FMCG companies boasting about negative working capital? They're squeezing every single one of their suppliers over there just to end up increasing gains for whichever their ultimate parents ends up actually being. And these are known issues. It's not that the government is unaware of it. The government refuses to act, which is the other problem. So the MSMEs will continue to suffer from being small, because Gandhi at one point in time has said we should be a nation of cottage industries over there. Cottage industries are not competitive in the global world. If you look at a Samsung in South Korea, Samsung's 20% of the GDP of South Korea, one single company. In India, we don't have anything that's remotely close to actually being a national champion. So if MSMEs have to go, honestly, one, our laws have to be made for smaller companies and larger companies, increase what the definition of a small company ends up actually being, give them a relaxation from a large number of the laws, the ES, the PF, ESI, everything else they have to end up actually doing. Give them access to credit and allow banks to end up actually taking a hit if they have to. Then we'll actually see the MSME sector rise. Otherwise, most of this is just lip service as actually being paid to a vote bank.
Okay, now I'll hand over to Padam.
No, it's extremely important to understand the sentiments. We have a person who is a policy designer, who person influences policies, RK. We have a lawyer who has seen the ground level realities. We have a young person who has seen the realities of life in terms of saying what is the experience when people are making some promises of this nature. Because some statements are there in the economic survey that India has to innovate, India has to build, India has to manufacture for the world. It has to do for the world at large. And it also says that capital flows where there is clarity and there is some sort of clarity, and they say what word, I'll use that word, clarity and collaboration. Capital will flow where there's a clarity and collaboration. That happens there itself. With that background now, an important segment we are now going to discuss is the aspect of infrastructure, where in the earlier year, last year, the FM made a statement, I need to invest in people, I need to invest in the economy, and that also means that I need to invest in infrastructure. We will see some data on infrastructure. Before that, we will hear the finance minister on this.
Infrastructure. During this past decade, our government has undertaken several initiatives for large-scale enhancement of public infrastructure, including through new financing instruments such as Infrastructure Investment Trust (InvITs) and Real Estate Investment Trust (REITs), and institutions like NIIF and NABFID. We shall continue to focus on developing infrastructure in cities with over 5 lakh population, that is tier 2, tier 3 cities, which have expanded to become growth centers.
We're looking at, therefore, infrastructure in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. What is the infrastructure investment? And look at the chart. It says what should be the expected infrastructure and what is the actual spend. Look at China. It's supposed to spend 6.4% of its GDP on infrastructure. It's actually spending 8.5. Therefore, even if China were to reduce its future infrastructure investments from historical levels, it will still maintain a comfortable ratio of infrastructure stock to GDP. India, on the other hand, is having a requirement of 6.9% of the GDP to be invested in infrastructure. Actually, it's spending about 4.7%. Pai read out the capital expenditure, 12 lakh crores, 4.4% of GDP. What is the capital expenditure? That also is insufficient because we are required to invest about 6.9%, and we are having the comments made by the panelists concerned in terms of the problems that India is facing at every aspect of its growth in terms of poor quality of infrastructure. Historical global spending is about 3.8%, and estimated global need is about 4.5% of the GDP being spent on infrastructure. Next. With this, we'll look into some components of the infrastructure development capital expenditure outlay within this country concerned. Good amount of money is going into railways and roads. Defense is taking a good amount, 2,32,000 crores. We have transport to states and other aspects are concerned. Now, therefore, highest amount is going now to roads, railways, and defense on a combination. Next. The expenditure outlay, if you look into the expenditure outlay in terms of the crores concerned, again, aviation is a little less, 6,955 crores in 2013-14 is going down. And it's about 2% only is the growth. Railways and roadways are having a cornerstone in terms of the total investment or involvement of the expenditure involved. Next. So what does the FM say in the course of the budget speech this time? We have to continue to focus on developing infrastructure in cities with over 5 lakh population. You just heard the FM saying so. To increase the public capex to 12.2 lakh crores, we've read those statistics, about 4.4% of the GDP. To set up an infrastructure risk guarantee fund, accelerate recycling of significant real estate assets of CPSE. This is a very interesting proposition. We'll have some comments from the panelists coming. That because the FM spoke about the rights and the InvITs, and she's now making a statement that there'll be a significant recycling of the real estate assets of the CPSEs to establish a new dedicated freight corridors, Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west, to operationalize 20 national waterways. They want to say that waterways are going to be an important mode of communication than roads and railways concerned. They would like to therefore encourage that. Next. To launch a coastal cargo promotion scheme. That is again for the shift from road and rail to the waterways. Develop 7 high-speed rail corridors. 15.1% increase in defense spending. This is the compulsion of the recent events, and we are also seeing the global trends on this matter concerned. 4.4% effective capital expenditure. We've already seen the statistics that Mohan had displayed earlier. With this background, therefore, I'll begin with RK because he's a person who was involved very closely and keenly with infrastructure. Our cities, therefore, the place where the growth is going to happen, therefore, are we focusing on urban centers as engines of growth? We have seen a good shift of population from the rural economy to the urban, and therefore, are we finally focusing on urban centers? Is this 4.4% GDP allocation towards capital expenditure sufficient enough to realize this dream? And how do we access the long-term, low-cost overseas capital? Mohan was mentioning about 30 to 50 years bonds. How do you therefore go about that? There was actually a statement made in the economic survey that the market-linked debentures are not being adequately, inappropriately taxed. Therefore, we need to correct that. That we need to have, therefore, a deep market in terms of the bonds and debentures. Nothing has happened there. So, your comments on all of this? So, I think, first of all, we compared with China. I think there is a little bit problem there. The defense expenditure in China is not considered part of infrastructure. So, if you remove that, India actually not 4.4. India is less than, is around 3.7. Because, 18% of our, capital is going into defense. So defense should not be included in infrastructure because defense infrastructure is not available for economic development primarily. Of course, on a same freight corridor, tanks can also go, but it's only during the special time. So I think India actually is not even spending 4% of GDP, which is actually a real problem. Any country which grew at a very large, whether it was US in 50s, 60s, or Japan in 60s, 70s, or any other country, huge investment was made in infrastructure, and this is what every time we get an opportunity, whether it is state governments or central governments, we say that. And also, the infrastructure maximum bang for the buck will come when you improve the infrastructure where the economic growth engines are there. There are only 8 to 10 cities in this country, big city, mega cities, which are the net job creators. Okay? And these 8 or 10 cities are crying for infrastructure because that has been left to the states and the cities. Bangalore, on average, will need for next 10 years, minimum 10 to 20,000 crores. If you really want it to be close to any efficient, city in the world, I'm not even talking about to make it Shanghai. Okay, try to make it like, I don't think Kuala Lumpur also is a good, okay, Hanoi, I would say, because I just went to, there. Hanoi, or maybe I went to Cambodia, Siam Reap. It's a tiny city, Angkor Wat. Our cities are crying for infrastructure, and they don't realize that the amount of productivity loss and economic loss by not investing, this is a mistake which they did. My recommendation when I gave, I said, give it to the mega cities. What they have given into tier 2, tier 3 cities. One Bhubaneswar giving 5,000 crores, I think we'll have a problem. Bhubaneswar doesn't know what to absorb 5,000 crores because there is demand problem. 5,000 crores absorbing in Bhubaneswar, you have to pave the roads with gold. Give 5,000 crores to Bangalore, will not be able to fix the whole ORR. Correct? And that 5,000 crores will save $3 billion every year in productivity gain, if you do in Bangalore. Because the loss due to the traffic jam on outer ring road alone between Silk Board and Kyarpuram was 2 years ago, around $2 billion. Now, the priorities are wrong. Maybe this is given based on the elections coming or for whatever reason. Intra-city connectivity in the country has improved. You want to go from city A to city B, big city, roads are nice, highways are nice, not the world class. Certain states have created expressways. Again, we'll say the largest number of expressways, largest is UP. They've done good, but there's no industry there. States where we have industries, like Karnataka and Tamil Nadu and all those places, infrastructure is very bad. Tamil Nadu doesn't have potholes, but the roads are still bad there as well. Okay. So I think this is a good initiative, but wrong direction. I don't know whether they will now, they can't change because they've announced the names also. Luckily, Bangalore is there. Bangalore's name is there in those 7 because last minute, with major fight, because only Bangalore is the mega city which is there. They written tier 2, tier 3 city. Last minute, they made a change. So much fight was done, ki boss, this is not right. So, luckily we got the thing. Let's see whether our city has capability to attract money from center because they are different parties and they always fight. So that I don't know. But yes, it's a good initiative. But I don't think it is really going to help the mega cities. Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. Delhi means NCR region. Your Pune, Ahmedabad. These are the kind of places. Hyderabad, Chennai. These are the places where you need. And central government has to give it. State governments can't do it. Their priorities are winning the elections and giving the freebies. So many bhagyas we are doing. Correct?
Infrastructure bhagya.
Infrastructure bhagya we should have. Thank you.
Vaitheeswaran.
On a lighter note, since he talked about the 5,000 crores in Orissa, Bhubaneswar not being used, around December I got a couple of calls from multiple colleges across the country, and all of them wanted me to speak on GST 2.0 in February, saying that we want to hold a program in our college, we want a program in a university, we want a program in a chamber on GST 2.0. I said, why suddenly GST 2.0 and why in February? They said, we've got funds, we have to use the funds. So they've been sanctioned funds by the government to hold programs on these things. They don't know what to do, so they want to hold a program on 2.0 after 6 months. Okay, so this is how it gets spent. And somewhere in the budget also, I saw somewhere a reference saying that the capex committed last year was not actually spent. So that is a serious concern. You're able to earmark funds, but are not able to spend the funds. We need to look at how the funds go. He's absolutely right on that to say that you have to look at where the revenue is getting generated and try to improve and knock off those productivity. But I'll also sympathize with the finance minister here. On one side, you need to maintain your fiscal deficit. Your budget is always presented for the overseas fellows, not for India. Let's be clear. The budget speech is not for us. It's for the rest of the world, especially the countries which he mentioned who lecture to us. So those countries are always keen on watching and ready to pounce on anything which borders on some degree of violation of fiscal deficit. So you have to maintain your fiscal deficit. You have to struggle to raise revenues. You can't touch tax. You can't increase tax revenues. Your railways, you look at the economic survey statement, it says our freight rates are subsidizing passenger tickets by 60%. So you cannot increase passenger rail, it's a political issue. So everything boils back to politics. So I think it's a tight rope which they're walking. We need to sympathize on that count. And I'm amazed by this 10,000 crores figure because nowadays just like 2047, 10,000 crore over a period of 5 years. This is not a 5-year plan here. This is budget for 1 year.
Okay, we'll see the finance minister next. We'll go faster now. Finance minister, we're waiting.
Sector. The Indian banking sector today is...
Yeah, slide please. I think the finance minister is listening to your criticism. She's upset.
I actually sympathize with her now.
Yes. Yes?
Financial sector. The Indian banking sector today is characterized by strong balance sheet, historic highs in profitability, improved asset quality, and coverage exceeding 98% of villages in the country. At this juncture, we are well placed to futuristically evaluate the measures needed to continue on the path of reform-led growth of this sector. I propose setting up a high-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat. High-level committee on banking for Vikasit Bharat to comprehensively review the sector and align it with India's next phase of growth, while safeguarding financial stability, inclusion, and consumer protection.
Okay. Yes. Next. Yes. Indian banks are very, very healthy. In the last 10 years, phone banking has gone away. Phone banking was there. People would call up and give a loan. Now they're not doing that. Modi is watching. He's keeping an eye on the money in the bank. And if somebody calls up for a bank, next time he's going to be in trouble. You can see the data here. Gross GNPA, NPA, gross was 11.2% in 18 and it's come down to 2.2. And banks have never been as healthy as here with a lot of capital. This is very good news. I think it was compliment to Indian banks for doing well. Of course, all of us paid the price in the form of high interest rates. Next. And you can see here, we have more than 6,000 listed companies now. This is slightly dated. 115 plus unicorns listed in the public exchange. I think the number is much higher. Now, about market value was about 5 trillion. I mean, today, it fell down yesterday, right? 10 lakhs crore disappeared. Now, 15 lakh crores, 20 lakh crore disappears in a day. And we don't feel it, right? We got enough money now. And FDI flows are at about 80 billion. Last 2 years, net FDI flows have been almost zero because private equity is selling and taking out the money. Mutual funds have gone to nearly $1 trillion, $930 billion, 80 lakh crores now, and that's very interesting. So our markets are growing very well. Next. And look at this, financial sector. Our banking sector is very small. Our bank deposits have only 71% of GDP and lending is only 58%. Of course, the United States got a bond market. There's a bank deposit, they've got a bond market which is bigger than the banks. But look at China, Japan and Germany, which are bank-led economies. The bank deposits are high, the bank lending is also high. Our banks are not lending. They're buying government securities. We need to have larger banks to give credit to many more people. Next. Now, what does the finance minister say, financial sector? She says we are very healthy. We'll set up a high-level committee to see what to do next. She's going to restructure PFC. And now, a review of the foreign exchange management non-debt instrument. Siddharth, you want to talk about this. To introduce a market-making framework for funds and derivatives on corporate bond indices. Corporate bond market is being developed for the last 30 years. It's still a developing matter. That's why we must do it more now. Next. Next, yeah. To encourage issue of municipal bond, they're going to give 100 crore incentive for every 1,000 crore bond. And this permit individual person resident outside India. These are not NRIs. I hope these are not NRIs. This is a resident individual person residing outside India. Any foreigner. And now we're going to increase the limit to 24%. So Siddharth, next. Siddharth, this is a question for you. The cost of, now this is a very interesting question for all of you because you're finance people. If you look at any $4 trillion economy, the cost of capital is 6 to 9%. United States, China, Germany, Japan, and UK and France too are less than 4 trillion. For India, the cost of capital 11 to 12%. The pre-tax profit of the corporate sector, listed and unlisted, pre-tax profit is 15% of GDP. They're making money head over heels. And we are ending up paying more because they're all being protected from imports. And the interest cost that India pays, Government of India, plus all of us, charged to NBFCs and banks, is 15.4% of GDP. That means whatever economic value is added, a large part goes to providers of capital, not to labor. People are underpaid. Providers of capital get large because the cost of capital is very high. Our banking sector is undersized for economy of this size, it is $4 trillion economy. Now, Siddharth, what kind of a banking and financial sector reforms are required to grow? What should RBI do to stop, whatever they're doing right now, what they're doing? So, do you think whatever the finance minister says is enough to grow the financial sector to provide capital and lower the cost of capital for everybody?
I think the first thing, the RBI believes that the R in RBI stands for being, they take the reserve part of reserve banking very, 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 very seriously. And they are extremely reserved in the way they end up actually watching the sector grow. So the sector grows too quickly, they look to rein it down almost immediately. The sector is not going good enough, they blame it on external factors. So it's always someone else's issue, it's never actually theirs. Our banking regulations are written for an old world economy that is primarily asset driven. We've moved to a world right now that is primarily driven by cash flows, primarily driven by operating expenditure. Our underwriting rules still end up actually insisting that profitability has to be there, a high amount of assets outside of cash has to also be there. I have to be able to hypothecate everything that needs to end up happening. The banking rules are so restrictive and regressive as of now that a banker, when he wakes up in the morning, if he gets up on the left side of the bed or right side of the bed, has to read an RBI circular to figure out which side of the bed to end up getting out. It's patently absurd. It is the number of regulations. I actually have a feed set up on my Slack which says all the RBI notifications. I get 30 notifications from RBI daily. 5 of those notifications are penal action taken against some bank or NBFC. 5 of them are some press release over there. The remaining 20 of those releases are some new notification or some new circular that ends up actually coming in. The most powerful person in a bank isn't the CEO, isn't the MD, isn't the chairman. It's a compliance person. Like no one in the bank has the guts to actually go against a compliance person and say, I want to end up actually doing this. And the compliance person says, I spoke to RBI like RBI is God, for that matter. The regulator has to end up actually going away, move to a framework that is more risk-based and that doesn't have to end up spelling out every single part of our activity. We have paternalistic regulators who look at all the regulated entities like children who don't understand what they're actually doing, which is the reason why we have such a blocker on what we actually do. Even opening a bank branch, opening a subsidiary requires RBI permission. It's patently absurd. If an RBI bank ends up actually having, let's say, something in the securities market, ends up having an asset management company or an AIF manager or something like that, they end up actually getting caught between a turf war between RBI and SEBI. Our regulators within the same country don't end up actually speaking to each other as openly as what's actually needed. So the sectoral reforms needed are actually fairly simple. People already know this. One, liberalize the banking sector. We've had universal banking on tap. I think for the past 15 years, no new bank has actually come up. The last large bank to come up was actually IDFC first. Over that. No one else has actually come in for that matter. You have a bunch of small payments bank becoming SFBs. Let us have competition when it comes to banking. The reason why the banking sector has such large profits is there's almost zero competition. The reason why there's no competition is because whatever bank can actually do is so highly regulated They don't have the space to end up actually creating new products, having new underwriting norms, or taking any additional amount of risk. Similar when it comes to the financial sector also, for that matter. The reason why the mutual fund flows are actually that high is because it's impossible for any Indian in the country to end up actually investing overseas. So therefore, all the pent-up capital has to end up going into our capital markets itself, which is one of the reasons that it ends up actually being fairly higher. All this once again spoils to the kind of regulations we had from 97, 98 onwards. The same regulations have actually carried forward to about 2026 to 25, 26 also. So change the regulators, allow it to become a light touch regime. Regulate the larger banks to a larger extent, but allow more competition to end up actually coming in for that matter. And if you are looking to reform some of this, don't just change the year of the law and have the same law end up coming in like what they did with income tax. Genuinely end up actually reducing the overall weight of regulation that actually exists. That's the way we can end up doing it. And the cost of capital is actually a function of that. The RBI still believes that if they have to cut rates, it's as though the money is going out of their own pocket. It's patently absurd. We have the highest cost of capital. If you have to borrow at 11 to 12%, and then on top of that end up actually adding the risk weightage and the bank's own margin, you're borrowing at close to 15%. Supernormal profits are defined as profits above 50%. Therefore, are you earning profits to end up actually paying your interest? Like the economists in the bank have to end up taking that into account. And as a 30-year-old person, you can't, this is obvious to me. It would be obvious to the people and the PhDs actually sitting over there as well.
Vaitheeswaran?
I think there are two systemic issues here, sir. The first is not necessarily in this segment. In all segments, we have come to a situation where we enact a law and then delegate significant powers to another authority. And then give further powers for subdelegation. And those guys just simply freak out because they've been given some powers to do something. When FEMA happened, FEMA was supposed to be a big liberal law compared to FERA. And then RBI, which had no business to do regulation, had to do regulation. So RBI, if you look at FEMA, in fact, many youngsters can take up FEMA as a big practice because today's opinion in FEMA is what applies to me is an opinion. You can build them on what applies to you. So you have to search the FEMA, you have to search the regulations, you have to search the guidelines, you have to search the circulars, you have to search whether it has been revised and go to today's website and check whether it has been revised today. If you're able to do that, you can bill the client. So I don't think business needs this kind of complexities. Second, if you look at exports, again, a new set of guidelines to coming from effect from October, completely change the whole scenario, bring one portal somewhere, add one form somewhere, a form won't work, the portal won't work. All of us are aware of how, whether it is MCA or IT or GST, how the portals are designed because they're well designed and then they amend it 100 times, then it collapses. So you have a systemic fault in the regulation, that's the first part. The second part, which is much more of a problem, is that when you look at all these designs, when they create these legislations and these circulars, etc., they make it so complex that the authority who has to take a decision is scared to take a decision, and he refers to headquarters. So most of the decisions, he prefers that I need headquarters to clear it because I don't have guidelines to do it. So how do you solve a problem?
Okay, Finance Minister, please listen to us. What is next?
Our second kartavya is to fulfill aspirations and build capacities. Close to 25 crore individuals have come out of multi-dimensional poverty through a decade of our government's sustained and reform-oriented efforts. Our government has therefore decided to place a renewed emphasis on the service sector to provide a pathway to fulfilling aspirations of a youthful India with the following measures.
Yes? Okay. Now the second kartavya is to fulfill aspirations of a people. Aspiration is to set up a high-powered education to employment committee. Whose aspiration is that? Existing institution like health, scheme to support states, set up 3 All India Institutes of Ayurveda, a strong care system. You know, I'll tell you a story. There's a very famous senior politician from the South. He occupied a very important position. When he had a press conference, they used to ask him all questions. He used to answer whatever he want, irrespective of the question. Now, the finance minister made the point, but after that point, these are the matters that she has said as policy. Next. Upgrade WHO Global Traditional Medical Center, National Institute of Hospitality, upskilling 10,000 guides in Parliament, National Destination Digital Knowledge Grid. We don't know what this is. Large Kalo India mission, focus on education, animal husbandry, sports sector, heritage, cultural, tourism, teching and agriculture. Next. Okay, folks, this is an important thing for all of you who want to see the country grow. Our GVA in 24-25 was 3 crore 23 lakhs crore. 46% of a working population of about 550 million people is in agriculture. 46%. Out of 46%, 63% are women. Women have gone up by 80 million in the last maybe 10 years. And men have come down to 37%. Industry 24%, services 29%. We must move people from agriculture to industry. We don't need more than 10-12% people in agriculture to produce the food that we need. This is underemployment. And if you look at dependent population, 65 crore people depend on the agriculture sector, and 41 crore on services. But per capita GVA, what can you earn per capita? Assuming everybody earns the same. Agriculture is 83,000, industry 2,54,000, 4,35,000 in services. So in every economy, services people earn more. All of you earn much, much more than any farmer, barring in Punjab or some other place, or maybe growing cauliflowers. All of you earn much more than somebody who earns, who used to grow cauliflower in the flat, right, Padam? Next. Now, service is an important part of job creation. It contributes 56% of GVA. Now, they want to create a service-based job economy. Are we investing adequately in higher education to meet our future needs? Will India reap the demographic dividend? I'll ask Siddharth and then RK. Services sector.
No, so services always been, India has actually leapfrogged in manufacturing and gone straight to services, which I think is, in the long run, actually turned out to be very well for India. The fact that we're concentrating on manufacturing now does actually show that the government has a belief that manufacturing can end up absorbing jobs. But a large amount of manufacturing going forward is actually going to be service related. We've already seen the rise of factories in China now, but there's not a single person in that particular factory. Barring some engineers, high quality engineers who end up actually coming in to troubleshoot, most of the factory ends up actually becoming automated. So the absorption of human capital will primarily be driven by the services sector itself. And for the services sector also, the greatest level of exports that we still end up having is actually our export of services. Our IT services companies export more IT services than Saudi Arabia exports oil. It's an extremely large number that ends up actually coming in. But the education part of this is something that we failed to end up executing on. Out of everyone on stage, I'm the person who graduated like the latest over there as well. And I can tell you, my education experience and your education experience has hardly had anything in any difference at all. In fact, we probably had the same teachers also on stage over there, where they were younger than yours and much older than mine, but same quality of education actually being imparted. And what we've seen now with the rise of AI is that the person who can memorize the most is no longer the smartest person who's actually there. Life, even during your work, no one actually asks you, give me section 56(2)(10) of the Income Tax Act 1961. You can actually Google it and end up actually figuring it out. In fact, the quality of AI responses as of now, there are people who are actually responding to tax notices just with basic knowledge of income tax and actually running it through an LLM. But none of our education or higher education centers actually teach these skills to any of our students. People graduating in MBA in finance don't understand Excel. They don't know a basic formula. They don't understand how to end up using most of these tools that end up coming up. So the education burden has actually passed on from academia to industry. So even for the higher education policy that needs to end up being done as of now, I think the first thing is with the new bill that's coming up over there, the new bill should not end up being a case of old wine in a new bottle. We actually need a new system of pedagogy where the college degree is no longer determinant of your future job success. It's how you end up actually using these particular tools. You can actually replace a 4-year degree with a 6-month to a 1-year course, just in terms of using the tools that exist as of now, and those people will be far more job ready.
How do you pass the CA exam using AI?
I passed my CA exam before AI came up, but unfortunately. But now there are. Even Google launched a system where the JEE, etc. ends up actually coming out in an LLM. So most of the tuition centers and edtech startups have actually been hollowed out. I think what we're seeing with AI that people fail to understand is the greatest democratization of access. You can have the best teacher in the world teaching you at your level that's accessible to you at any point of time. So the need to end up having a negative working capital business like a college, which takes your fees upfront but then gives you education over a period of year, can end up actually going away. But a prerequisite for any higher education, any job, etc., still ends up being a college degree. If we were truly to revolutionize education, to allow homeschooling to end up happening, allow people to self-certify, write an exam if they have to end up actually getting a job, you'll see a larger proportion of our workforce end up actually being qualified as well as being job ready in a very, very short span of time.
Do you think
for a
AI
degree.
will replace lawyers and CAs?
AI will replace bad lawyers and bad CAs, and especially those who don't know how to end up actually using AI. I think everyone who's here, if you've dealt with art, I was an article also some time back, but the quality of articles keeps deteriorating over time. And a number of people, especially in industry now, are saying, do I need to hire 5 articles or can I just buy a subscription for like $20 and end up actually doing the same amount of work? That's actually happening. So therefore, the smartest companies no longer need to hire additional people to end up actually delivering greater services. The efficiency factor keeps increasing for them. So the only way for the competition to actually come about when everyone has access to the same tool is to teach them how to use that tool. None of our education systems actually do. Me learning that mitochondria is a powerhouse of a cell when I was in 6th standard has no relevance in my life as I end up actually turning 30, end up actually getting into a job. The same as what I learned that FERA from the earlier regime got replaced by FEMA in 1999. If you have to do something, as Sir said, you have to end up going to the latest website, latest circular to end up actually finding it. So this static knowledge ingestion, which has been the benchmark of our education, has to actually change. And the higher education part, I think more than a large amount of our spend on higher education goes into CapEx, goes into building a school, meeting some UGC guideline which says you need to have these many labs, these many classrooms, this dimension, this sort of board, this internet connection, this TV. Very little actually goes into teachers, very little actually goes into education. So if we were to actually slash the education budget, give people the ability to end up actually learning this and making a job market that can be competitive, we'll actually see the gains in education that people have been talking about.
Okay.
I'll just take the second part since
Yes.
you asked that question on AI. What I've seen is that it's a tremendous tool and clearly replaces many associates and juniors. The output, of course, you need to have a human oversight. You need to ensure, because nowadays this AI is such that it kind of reads your mind and wants to give you the answer that you want. And now with all this hallucination going around, it gives you the citation which is correct, the name is correct, the citation is correct, the line inside is what you want, but that line is not there in the judgment.
Really?
Really. So you need to do that kind of testing to be sure before you flash it to a court. Otherwise you'll get drilled upon there.
But are courts finding out also?
Yes, courts are also finding. There are at least 4 or 5 IT decisions itself pulling out, taking on AI. But AI is definitely a tool and one should recognize that. And I believe that it is going to be the biggest equalizer. As he rightly said, the skill or memory and all that might just disappear. I can proclaim that I have 3 decades of practice, but that can be irrelevant by the fact that somebody 2 years in the field can use a good AI tool and give the same solution to the client. And one stage the client is going to say, I don't need both of you, I'll do it myself.
The future of education is not about answering a question, it's about understanding what question to ask. I think the moment
How
we
many
learn
of you
that,
use AI? Put your hands up. Oh my God. Oh my God. Now, Vaitheeswaran, do you have the same numbers in Chennai too? Chennai is smarter. They're smarter people.
Chennai also uses AI significantly. And here also I've seen the biggest problem is in the profession of audit. They have absolutely no clue as to how they're going to use the AI. They're putting the client data, every sensitive data. They're not using ethical AI. It's going to boomerang and hit them at some point of time.
Is it true, folks?
Yes.
You agree with that? You are not loud enough. Okay. RK, anything before you go to next point?
I think this is the biggest issue of our country. I don't think we are taking this as seriously, and the way trivially our finance minister said about it, creating Ayurveda institutes and things like that, which none of it will come in her term, even if she gets re-elected, next term also. I think fundamentally we all have to worry about can our country, because China grew, as Siddharth said, by keeping the wages low, exporting the productivity, and that's how they grew manufacturing. They already produce close to 45 to 50% of the world's thing, and they're not going to go away. People will not work, but factories will work. I don't think India is going to get out of poverty or wherever we are today through manufacturing alone. As he also said that we have leapfrogged into services. A low-income economy never goes. Nobody has done it. Whether it is Japan earlier, then Korea, and now in Taiwan, then China and Thailand, everybody went through this route of education, women workforce, because manufacturing of electronics is primarily women, because men cannot focus. Exactly, and their hands, they're not dexterity of men is very, very less. So that's why whole of, whether you go to Bangladesh or whatever it is, everywhere it is a manufacturing of precision and electronics women. In our country, whole of North India, we do not allow our women to go out of the house. Forget about why Tamil Nadu has maximum manufacturing, because women are more empowered to go out and work. So this is a fundamental societal problem. Our country cannot get out of where we are by manufacturing alone. Services, we are already doing very well. I think we should give. But what happens with people who cannot become the coders or cannot have a 16-year education? Nurses, caregivers. Can India actually provide the employment to all our people? Doesn't matter what we do. We can't. We have to export our service talent to outside India, and they will send money to us in terms of remittance, which will get involved. So that's one thing. That's one. We have to be very careful. Second, our country cannot afford to have 65 crore people dependent on agriculture. 46% people work in agriculture. On average, per capita, 0.8 acres is per capita land in this country, though we are the largest arable land in the world. So people have to come out of. So this, out of 45 crore people coming out of this, 20 crore people, where will they go? That's the deal. So this higher education itself is a bad word. If I do MA, I'm higher education. It should be relevant education. And this is what our guys do not understand. They are creating IAMs. They are creating IITs. Fine. When I graduated, there were only 4 IITs. Now they have 25. Great, good engineers. But what happens to the people who want to become a good nurse, a person who wants to become a good electrician, a good plumber, a good fitter? ITIs are failed. You do not get, thanks to urban company, at least I get my tap fixed. Correct? But these are the kind of things which we are not focusing. Japan did it, China did it. Not everybody goes to university there. Because cost of university education is very high to the country and to the people. I think we need to focus on the skilling these people. Our skill mission failed. My cousin was head of skill ministry. He told me that we have no clue what's going on. They wasted 5 years. Nothing happened. So I think we have miserably failed, and I don't think anyone in the government understands. Our apprenticeship program did not work. Government is giving money to the industry to take people as intern and apprentice. Industries are not taking. Because they are saying, after I take, I cannot guarantee them the jobs, then the government will come after us, why you are not giving the jobs? So a lot of issues. So I think this is a real problem. We should not be very trivial about it, and I think you and I and everybody else who are really influenced, we have to go and give some idea, because none of them have jobs, by the way. Politicians don't have jobs, correct? So, I mean, they have jobs, but they don't understand how to create jobs. And that's why their policies are usually, and most of the babus who create these policies have a job which is not a job because it's a permanent job. So I'm sorry to say that, but this is totally goofed up.
One area where we have had a lot of rhetoric all along has been the sensitive aspect of agriculture. We will see what the FM has to say on agriculture. These are all topics of AI being little high, then manufacturing. We'll come down to some earth level, ground level, earth, and see what the FM has to say on agriculture and have some questions on agriculture. We have already seen some statistics. We'll have some questions on agriculture.
Our third Kartavya aligns with our vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas towards Vikasit Bharat. This requires targeted efforts for 1. Increasing farmer incomes through productivity enhancement and entrepreneurship, with special attention to small and marginal farmers. B. Empowering Divyangjan through access to livelihood opportunities, training and high-quality assistive devices. C. Empowering.
We have had a number of statements over a period of time, how to double farmers' income, how to have from the farm to the table. So many statements are coming about, and we are having a continuation, how there should be an institutional intervention, how there should be policies, what are the problems of agriculture, crop diversity, then the fertilizer usage, the Food Security Act. A lot of aspects. Some other aspects are again being mentioned here. We will have a brief look at what the FM has to say. Targeted efforts to increase farmers' income. Focus on Purvodaya states and Northeast region to accelerate development and employment opportunities. Increase farmers' income in fisheries, animal husbandry, and high-value agriculture. This is what they're making, that the economic survey makes a report that India is doing well, and the average growth of income in the fisheries and animal husbandry and horticulture is quite high as compared to the traditional agriculture. They dedicate programs to transform Indian cashew and Indian cocoa. Self-help entrepreneur march to be set up to help women become entrepreneurs. To set up NIMHANS 2, also upgrade NIMHANS Mental Health Institute. How does it go with agriculture is an issue you'll have to answer. Focus on the eastern states and northeastern region. Next. So two aspects, therefore. One is the human capital and one is the farmer's income. Both are intertwined, therefore, in this the slide that the FM spoke about. And that is the third kartavya, the third duty that she was talking about. And Government of India and state spends about 10 lakh crore per year on subsidies. Will this help grow India? Gross enrollment rate in India is only 27 for the age of 18 to 23 with 4.32 crore students in college. Is the spending on higher education adequate enough? We're having some policy statement made by the government in terms of higher education, STEM education and all of that. So Siddharth, your comments on these aspects.
I think farmers' income, I've been hearing farmers' income doubling. All of us have been hearing farmers' income doubling for quite a while. But the reason why farmers' income never actually goes up is because the biggest issue plaguing agriculture as of now is a system of perverse incentives. What do I mean by that? We are very well sufficient. We are highly sufficient when it comes to rice. We're highly sufficient when it comes to wheat. But we're amongst the largest producers of your edible oil seeds and your lentils and pulses and everything. We are terrible when it comes to the production of pulses. Why? Because we have government policies for procurement of wheat. We have government policy for procurement of rice. We have no government policy for the procurement of pulses. Therefore, as a farmer, who's obviously a rational economic being, he says, if I can get a price guarantee for rice and I get a price guarantee for wheat, I will only grow those. I won't grow any other crop for that matter because it's not required. And because of that, you have the food, you have an issue of not enough go-downs. All the rice is actually procured, it rots in a go-down over there, then you have pictures in the paper saying so much quintals of rice are actually rotting over there. It ends up actually going away and it continues. Our agricultural policies should not actually focus on particular crops, the biggest thing we have. But they can't change that focus because it's a political issue. There are very important states across the country who rely on these subsidies to come in. That's why when the farm law came in, it never actually ended up actually transcribing or actually playing out over there. For agricultural income to truly end up actually increasing, we need to create a system of incentives for our farmers to end up actually growing cash crops and other crops that have an export market potential. That's actually number one. Number two, there's a heightened awareness of organic farming. But organic farming is actually a minuscule amount of the total acreage under farming as of now. And there are no accreditations for organic farming. Any farmer can actually say, I am organic, put up a nice ChatGPT generated image and some nice marketing slogan, they can end up selling it at a massive amount. There is a region of startups being created, like Pluck and others, which end up actually charging you 70, 80, 90 rupees for like 150 to 200 grams of bananas. Why? Because they're organic. The paying power exists. People actually end up actually paying for it. But we don't have enough farmers who end up actually supplying to that. So we have increased competition of farmers trying to grow rice, wheat, and these low-value crops. Not enough incentives to allow them to end up actually growing other crops. Not enough training for the same. But for every one of the government speeches where they talk about increasing farmer income, goes down to the same thing. We'll give them cheap power. We will give them added fertilizer. We will actually give them more water. So therefore, you're stressing out the land even more. For the value add to come into agriculture, we need to have policies that end up actually allowing all of this. And even the export potential also, for that matter, export becomes a function of storage, export becomes a function of our customs unions which are actually there. We don't have adequate storage for any of the grains. If you look at onions and tomatoes, you have a sudden glut of crops and people are throwing it out on the road over there because they can't end up actually storing it. So you have a system of agricultural incentives for production, nothing for export, nothing for storage, nothing for quality. So out of the four important aspects, we over-index on one, ignore the others, and then all of us are surprised that farmer incomes don't actually double. And these are fairly known aspects. So the bureaucrats who've never actually been on a field, I think in God knows how long, need to actually understand how the market ends up actually working. And there are various other countries across the world who've actually doubled. You look at Japan. Japan has the smallest acreage of land around. A Japanese person can end up actually selling a pear over there for like $50 to $60. One pear. One Japanese watermelon, which is just square, because you grow it in a square box, can end up retailing for $150. It's not that hard to do. You just actually require better marketing, better standards. We have no standards in agriculture, which is one of the reasons why. And the one reason I don't want is because every year it's a fantastic budget or political issue. You say, I will double farmer income, and you end up actually trying to get the farmer votes. So we can de-link the two. Just have better standards and system and some degree of accreditation. You'll actually see a large number of people leave farming, for that matter, because they'll become more efficient in farming. The smaller farmers end up actually getting absorbed if you actually have land banks being created, allow them to aggregate their fields. And agriculture can truly end up actually generating not just disguised unemployment, but actual economic value add for the entire nation.
Vaitheeswaran, the background what Siddharth was mentioning, we have 15 climatic conditions in this country. We have, out of the 60 type of soil varieties, we have 46 type of soil varieties in this country. So we are blessed very well. But we have some sort of a fertilizer imbalance in terms of the NPK ratio. Urea is coming in. Now, some amount of crop diversification happening towards the ethanol blending itself. So we are having some economic-driven aspect, not necessarily a quality-driven aspect, and responses to that, therefore.
I think what is the problem with agriculture is, as he rightly said, we keep talking about doubling farmers' income. And we play around with this during each budget. We had a Kisan card to make them, active in financial markets and use credit card facilities. We call it a Kisan card. Now, what is the real problem is that you don't have labor. If you look at agriculture, there is no labor at all. Nobody wants to come and work in the field. So then you say, okay, mechanize it. If you want to mechanize it, the size of the field is small. You need to have a massive field, aggregate land for the purpose of mechanization, which is not possible because all of them fight with each other. They own small segments of land. And then if you decide to corporatize it and have a huge segment of land to operate, you have ceiling laws which says that you cannot own more than X number of acres. So you need to reform all these things if you want to really go up in scale. Only scale can work as far as agriculture is concerned in one segment. Of course, there are new technologies where they come out of the pots with water being very less used. That's also interesting. That should be parallel in terms of agriculture. But doing this drama of saying we'll double based on this, I guess it's good. In terms of rhetoric, it works. In terms of facts, it works. But unless you do technology, you can't really do it. And as he rightly said, storage is a challenge. We have seen enough videos of people just dropping their onions or tomatoes on the roads because they didn't get the procurement price which they wanted, which is very sad and unfortunate. But that's a real story in many cases. Now, on your education segment, which you talked about, higher education, just few minutes back, he spoke about the fact that we should not even be having education. We should be having school at home, enjoy at home, and things like that. There are a lot of modern schools which go for celebrities. A lot of celebrity kids don't go to formal school. They have a system whereby they can do whatever they want. They can do entrepreneur. They can do stuff which they like and still do whatever learning they want to do in their own style. But as far as education is concerned, you go back in time, Chidambaram's budget, 2004. Suddenly he lowered his voice and said, in our country, primary education is a problem. We're talking about 2004. So he said, primary education is a problem. We need a lot of children going to go to school and complete primary education. So I was watching the budget. I told my friend, he's putting a cess. All this drama is only for cess. So he put a primary education cess on that, on all goods at that point of time. So that's all this drama for that. You know that? Long ago. And 3 years later, same Chidambaram, he said, primary is no longer a problem. We need to complete 11th and 12th. So I said, another cess is coming. Secondary cess came.
No, Jaitley said, we are a non-tax-paying country.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough people declaring income more than 1 crore. Then he put a cess on people declaring more than 1 crore. I met him in a wedding and told him, you're saying people are not declaring income more than 1 crore. Why did you put a cess on them? And he said, Mohan, they told me if I put a cess, I get 2,000 crores more.
And that too, that will go straight to the center's account. Finance, it won't go to the 59-41% devolution. That's a master plan. Anyway, coming quickly to the last point, somewhere I think we are losing connect also. Like, just now you mentioned about Kartavya. First Kartavya, second Kartavya, third Kartavya, then there's the Sapota, Sathagudi, something, what was that? Sabka Vikas.
Sabka Vikas, Sabka.
And then that Atimber thing, Atmanirbhar, all those things. Very difficult for many parts of the country to even understand what it means.
Oh, in Tamil
Nadu, we don't know any of these words.
You don't understand Sabka Vikas?
We don't know Sabka, we don't know Hindi. So we know Sabka Vikas and Sabka Vikas.
No, now there's an AI tool which Arnab Goswami is using. when she speaks in English, it gets translated into Tamil and Kannada.
The
simultaneously.
Google Translate alone helps me understand all these words. So I'm saying you need to sell something, like for example law. You can't make reforms by putting the same law ditto into different numbers and renaming the English into a Hindi act. I was hoping they didn't do this, Ayakar Tax Act for Income Tax 2025. Luckily it came as Income Tax 2025. So you can't do that as reform. You need to do something more.
Okay, folks, now let's go to the finances. This is about finances, money coming in, money going out. Yes, Finance Minister, what are you doing with our money?
One of the main operational instruments for debt targeting is the fiscal deficit. I am happy to inform this august House that I fulfilled my commitment made in 2021-2022 to reduce fiscal deficit below 4.5% of GDP by 25-26. In RE 25-26, the fiscal deficit has been estimated at par with BE of 2025-26 at 4.4% of GDP. In line with the new fiscal prudence path of debt consolidation, the fiscal deficit in BE 26-27 is estimated to be 4.3% of the GDP. Budget estimates 2026 to 2027. Coming to 26-27, the non-debt receipts and the total expenditure are estimated as 36.5 lakh crore and 53.5 lakh crore respectively. The centre's net tax receipts are estimated at 28.7 lakh crore rupees.
Thank you, Finance Minister. Now, this is the borrowing of the fiscal deficit of the government. I'll tell you a secret. In 2021, the total borrowing was 18 lakh crores because that is the COVID year. And in Delhi, there's a wonderful officer, brilliant man, who's now in the cabinet secretariat from Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu. They're all brilliant people come from Tamil Nadu. They don't do papam, they come from Tamil Nadu. And what did he do? He increased the fiscal deficit to 18 lakh crores, I think it's 18 lakh crores, 11% of GDP, 4.5 lakh crores of money which was borrowed from the small savings fund. He took it on the government account and showed it as part of fiscal deficit. 67,000 crores he paid to Air India and showed it as part of fiscal deficit to clear off Air India's debt. 45,000 crore he gave it for export subsidies which was not paid. 35,000 crore he gave it to states for earlier dues. So clear up all the old liabilities, put it there and said, I have spent 18 lakh crore giving relief to people. And everybody applauded him. Everybody said, fantastic, you saved this country from COVID. Nobody read the numbers. I met him and congratulated him, said, you're the most brilliant finance person I ever knew. You did all this. Thank you very much for cleaning up the fiscal. Now, every government borrowing is part of the fiscal deficit. Earlier, it was outside the budget, like Chidambaram did with those bonds. Now, you see, the borrowing has come down, and the last 5 years, borrowing has been in a narrow range. So, the fiscal deficit percent GDP is coming down. Next. The beautiful chart is going all the way down. Now, of course, it's stabilizing because they want to spend some money. Next. And our inflation is come down to 1.7%. There's a secret about inflation. Our inflation weights are based upon 2011-12 weights. In 2011-12, per capita income was 75,000 rupees. Food was 46% of consumption. And in food, 20-25% is vegetables. And that has continued till today. And next year is going to change. They just released the new norms. And food will come from 46% to 36%. It's important for you as citizens and chartered accountants to understand this. So, the RBI has got a monetary policy committee. 7 wise men sit every 2 months and discuss how to raise interest rates. And for the last 1.5 years, inflation has been going up because tomato, onion, potato prices have been going up. And last 3 quarters, it has been coming down. And these wise men increased interest rate 1.5 years ago because inflation went up, CPI, with 46% wage, 20% was tomato, onion, potato prices. And they think by increasing interest rate, tomato, onion, potato prices will come down. And the way it saw 2011 and 12, there's nothing more absurd than this in any country in the world. Now it's getting corrected. That's why inflation has come down, because, the vegetable prices have become negative. They went up 40%, now they come back to normal. So inflation has come down. Next. India's debt to GDP is 55%. This is central government, not state government. And they want to bring it down to 55% in 26-27. They changed the target from fiscal deficit to central government debt to GDP. And the government of course, has fulfilled. The government has done a great job managing finances. They're not increasing our expenses, and they make sure that they're doing well. Market borrowing this year is supposed to be more. That's why the stock market is down, because they're borrowing more money in bond this year. And then they also put that STT and options and futures, and they're supposed to collect 10,000 crores, but the market came down by 10 lakh crores. They're saving the poor middle class traders. They don't want them to lose money, so the rest of you can lose money of 10 lakh crores to save some few traders. Next. And the government has accepted the Finance Commission's, Fishing Finance Commission rates. Now this path, I will ask, Siddharth and Vaitheeswaran, and I'll ask RK, because next is taxes. Vaitheeswaran is required. Siddharth, are we on the right path to accelerate growth with low inflation? And government wants to reduce its debt to 50% by 2031. Do you think it will happen, or something else will come up? And the 16th Finance Commission has given more to Karnataka, right? Karnataka has come down, they've given more. And I tweeted yesterday, because Siddharamaiah was abusing everybody all this time. So I told him, at least, applaud Prime Minister Modi, and he's very angry with Prime Minister for increasing it. I mean, Finance Commission did it. Yes, Siddharth?
No, I think, so the 16th Finance Commission was fantastic because they actually looked at contribution to GDP and gave a 10% weightage to that. So states like Tamil Nadu, states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka especially, and Karnataka actually benefited the most. Because Karnataka has unfortunately gotten stepmotherly treatment from the central government, I think, for a very long period of time. Because we're always off cycle with the party that's actually in power in the center. We always end up being contrarian and end up actually voting the other person over there. So I think the 16th Finance Commission was well measured in the way they ended up actually doing it. Will it answer the criticism of the states? The answer is no. Because I think politicians like cribbing and they need a boogeyman to go after, and central government's a fantastic perpetual boogeyman to end up actually going after for anyone who's not from the same political cadre as them. In terms of India's right path to accelerate growth, I think we actually are. So despite, I think, for the last 1.5, 2 hours, all of us have had fairly negative views. I think the view of India is that India is actually doing far better than the rest of the world on a number of areas. We criticize because we believe, like any good parent, we believe we can end up actually doing better than what they're doing as of now. And Indians show love through anger. I think that's something we all learn from our parents, and they learn from their parents before that as well. So if you look at the macro also now, just going back to the earlier slide that came about, if you look at the engines of growth that are there across the world, the United States of America is playing out some weird form of Squid Games and God knows what are the reality TV thanks to Trump. And Trump is doing a fantastic job ejecting the smartest people out of that particular country. China's figuring out its own battle plans, going through internal coups, etc. And very few people can actually invest into China as well. Europe is yet to recover from the 2008 financial crisis because they're still trying to get their act together now, and deals that, if you think the Indian government is slow, it took the European government 20 years to close a deal with Mercator. It took them about 23 years to actually close a deal with India as well. So they are far more bureaucratic than what we possibly end up being. And Europe ultimately will become a combination of great wine, great cheese, Disneyland, and basically nothing else for that matter. There's very little economic growth that's happening there. The whole of Southeast Asia can actually fit in UP, and the Indonesian stock market lost $80 billion. I know a number of Southeast Asian investors who've suddenly looked left to the map, realized India is there, abandoned their Southeast Asia investment plan, and are fully concentrating on India as of now. Middle East is going through its own turmoil because of two neighbors who are having their all-out war. The whole of Latin America has gone back to the 80s because of excessive US intervention. Most of them are spooked that United States came in, took away a president of Venezuela and swooped him out in the time it takes to actually order from Swiggy, Zomato, Blinkit, or anyone else. And the whole of Africa has been rising, I think, for the past 30 years I've been there. And Japan has, I think in the time I've been alive, for the first time I've actually seen inflation. So all of them are surprised and don't know what to do with inflation. So India is relatively better positioned than the rest of the world because we have a combination of fewer controversies compared to the rest of the world, a high population of youth. But it's unfortunate that the leaders are one and a half generations above the average age of the country. But that's a problem that will resolve with time itself, for that matter. And I think the fact that we have high degree of internet penetration, beautiful digital public goods, the ability to transact online, the ability to pay online at a fairly negligible sums over there. We have the right combination of factors that allow us to end up actually leapfrogging and actually end up creating value. Our biggest deterrent, once again, ends up being government policy. So the biggest thing the government can do is similar to what Vaitheeswaran has actually articulated way back, saying government has to actually get out of business. But the problem we see is the government, moment it takes one finger off from the thing of business, it puts another finger right into it. So that swapping out is something that we have to end up getting away. So we can actually end up accelerating our growth with low inflation. I think the moment they change the inflation measures, for that matter, and the price of onion no longer dictates the price that I have to pay on a home loan or an EMI, cost will immediately end up actually coming down. The fact that we will ultimately go through a population survey and our voting rights will end up getting rejigged to show the immense amount of urbanization that's happened, mean that the urban voice will actually have a greater voice in terms of our politicians. So now the politicians will no longer be talking about farmer income and rural. They'll actually start talking about urban problems also. And in a democracy, which is a series of competitive lobbies, unless you actually have a political force, unless you have numbers, you never really have a voice. So I think we're actually seeing those kind of factors happen as of now. We went through our pain. We may go through new pain in the future, but we are far better positioned than the rest of the world. So we will be able to achieve the path to low inflation. The government's outstanding liabilities is fully a function of government discipline. If the political leaders are actually disciplined and they don't want to end up actually giving exorbitant freebies over there, there's a very good chance we won't actually achieve that by 2031. We may actually achieve that earlier. Comes down to discipline, comes down to the government actually getting out of the average Indian's way. If we have these two factors, everything else can be ignored. We will end up actually reaching our Viksit Bharat, for that matter.
RK. Vaitheeswaran, next question I'll ask you, not this, okay? Yeah, RK.
So I think, Siddharth has grown quite a bit since I spoke to him last time. Good, yeah. Mohan, you're doing some, I think, maybe he's allowing you to. Okay.
Maybe he's not doing anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's allowing
The mother.
Mother, okay, got it. Anyway, I think Siddharth very nicely put it. And I thought I have a problem with a lot of my friends who are, majority of them are US citizens, but live in Bangalore because they can't afford the healthcare there. And they are very rich people, by the way. So they will always criticize what's wrong with India. Of course, now after Trump, they have stopped. So I think we are in a fantastic situation, whatever we said. And I think I came back to India when nobody came back. I came back to India in 95, and everybody thought I was crazy. And I came after living quite a good stuff which I was doing. I always believed in this country, and I think we are in a fantastic position. How we managed during the COVID, how we are doing afterwards, with 4.3% in an economy which is growing at this stage, is still our and poor country from the whatever parameter you see, managing the fiscal deficit, not allowing bankruptcies of the banks. I know. Our friend, my classmate is the governor, RBI governor. He was a finance secretary earlier and all. I think we're still a little bit scared that systemic default should not happen because many countries have suffered, 2007, 2008, the bubbles and all that. So I think being a little bit prudent and having financially, sound system is much better than deregulating and not being able to control the Armageddon, because as Mohan said, there's a phone banking earlier happening and you don't know how politicians change, again phone banking comes. So I think having some regulation is a good idea. Over-regulation is bad. Overall, I'm very, very positive. I'm not very sure whether the debt to GDP, the outstanding liability GDP reduction is the best.
Central government.
Okay,
not
is okay.
states.
Because for growth, we need borrowings for growth. In fact, our savings need to grow, and we need to have more deposits.
No, our problem is interest rates are too high.
Correct.
26% of all Government of India revenues goes to pay interest.
So I think interest rates have to come down, and like 6 to 9% is the global.
How much is salary? How much is salaries?
Salary is about 8.5 lakh crores. Establishment, 8.5 lakh crores and 50 lakh crores.
6%.
Yeah, 50 lakh crores, 8.5 lakh crores, 14%, 15%.
All the salaries put together, yes. Yeah. So I think overall, we are in good shape. We need to invest more. The country really cannot be stingy in terms of just trying to manage. Unless you invest, you will not reap the benefits. And if you have in a good situation where our bank are doing very well. More lending had to happen. Interest rates have to come down. Hopefully, two things are, I think, have been due. Census. We are still stuck in 2010-11. We don't have the right numbers. Economic data needs to be changed. Our CPI index and all that composition has to change. I think overall, you should go after this session that we are in very, very good state given what's happening across the world.
Good. Now we'll come to taxes. Taxes.
I just add a line here. Despite all the criticism that we might have put across on the speech or on the facets of it, I'm absolutely gung-ho about India. There is no doubt about it. And we always look at these numbers, financial numbers, as what is the only thing. We forget the fact that let's look at a blood test compared to what you need as a blood test in UK versus blood test in India. There's a guy coming home to take your blood test, right? You have so much of services access. In UK hospital, unless you're about to die, they won't even admit you in a hospital. Even if you're not dying also, they won't. So there are some things we take for granted. And I think he was absolutely right when he compared the rest of the world and said why we might grow. But let's add further. We have become the 4th largest economy, thanks not only to us, but to others also. They also came down, tumbling down, therefore we had to go up.
Ipo Vendapa, Vaitheeswaran, because now she's going to talk about taxes. You say all those nice things, she'll levy more taxes. Yes, Finance Minister, don't levy taxes. See?
Other tax proposals. Change in taxation of buyback was brought in to address the improper use of buyback route by promoters. In the interest of minority shareholders, I propose to tax buyback for all types of shareholders as capital gains. However, to disincentivize misuse of tax arbitrage, promoters will pay an additional buyback tax. This will make effective tax 22% for corporate promoters. For non-corporate promoters, the effective tax will be 30%.
Okay, now let's look at the figures. These impressive figures. Gross tax revenue grew 11% in 23-24, 9.5%, 10.8%, and in 25-26, it grew at 7.4% because about 2 lakh crores was given away for an income tax benefit for the public. About another 2 to 2.5 lakh crore GST was reduced. About 4.5 lakh crores was reduced if they look at proper numbers. And you can look at non-tax revenues in 25-26 has gone up, primarily because RBI gave a dividend of 2,61,000 crores as against some 2 lakh crore budgeted. That's why it's gone to 6.67 lakh crores. You know how RBI gives a dividend? RBI issues a paper currency. Paper currency becomes legal tender. So you have to give them money, your bank deposits. So they use that money to go buy government bonds. So we have the paper currency, 37 lakh crores of paper currency. RBI used the money to buy government bonds and get 7% interest. It is called, is an arbitrage that RBI has. And I think that arbitrage is used to have RBI's balance sheet. And RBI's balance sheet, I've been studying for the last 15 years. They reduce the interest, some part of the interest, from the interest income and do not show the full interest. They got some funny accounting. RBI has got 20 lakh crores under something called current liabilities, which is the difference between market value of the currency they have and gold. They got 10 lakh crores of gold. Book value is 1.5 lakh, 2 lakh crores. They keep it as current liabilities. And then they say we have to have reserves of 6.5% of the balance sheet size. And the balance sheet size is the market value of foreign exchange and gold. The risk is on the cost, net of the book value, net of the market value and the book value. Difference between book and market value is reserves. But they put it on the market value and nobody comments. I don't see any comment in newspapers. I've written 5 articles in the last 4 years to tell people this is voodoo accounting. But everybody signs up. Anyway, that's different. Now you can see here, Government of India budgeted 50 lakh crores, state government budgeted 60 lakh crores. They spend 110 lakh crores a year. And Parliament passed the budget without discussion for last many years. Even today they shut down Parliament because of some silly book. And okay, next. And here, Gross tax revenue was 10.82%, but stood at 7.4%. And the next year we estimate to be 8% higher. Next. Now this is an interesting slide. Have they actually collected tax compared to budget? Yes. Very good fiscal management. 23-24, 98%, 97%, 98. And the spending, subsidies was 82%, 70%. They have more but spent less subsidies. And expenditure is been under 100% last 2 years. I think there's pretty good management by Nirmala Sitharaman and Prime Minister Modi. They don't waste too much of money. Next. And look at this. This is interesting. Corporation tax is growing pretty well. This year, income tax came down from 14.38 lakh crores budget to 13.12 lakh crores because 2 lakh crores was given away, but they estimated 1 lakh crore in the last budget. And they gave it 2 lakh crore. I think they made a mistake in calculation. They normally do that. And I think it's good for us. Even if you look at GST, it's come down because the GST coming down is because the GST rates have come down. And if you look at the ratio, direct tax to GDP ratio is going up 7.1%, 6.9. Indirect tax to GDP is coming down to 4.3% this year, which is an all-time low for the last 15 years. Indirect tax applies to everybody, rich and poor. Direct tax to people who pay income tax. Till now, I think 8,93,000 crore, 8.93 crore of returns have been filed. Out of it, 3 crore people pay taxes. All of you, I'm sure, pay some taxes. 3 crore, only 3 crore pay income tax. And they collect about 13 lakh crores from 3 crore people and give them bad roads. You can see here, tax to GDP has been very good. It's come down to 11.2%. Next. And the direct tax collection, as of 11/1, we have seen an increase of 9% this year. And I think they want to have something like about 12%. 9%. In the budget, I think they've taken a new figure, which is less. Next. This is interesting. Corporate tax has grown up by 9% from 2017-18 to 2026-27 because corporate tax came down. In taxation is an economic issue. A corporate is an entity which is owned by investors. So they earn the money, and the money should go back to investors like a LLP. In LLP, whatever goes back to investors, there's no dividend tax. You take the money, right? You pay 30%. Right? It's only a vehicle. But at corporate, you put 25%, and when you pay the dividend of the balance 75%, 30% goes away. It's very inefficient, raises the cost of capital. It's gone up by 9% despite rates coming down from 34% to 25%. Personal income tax has gone up from 2017-18 to 2026-27 to 14% per year. In the last 3 years, it has gone up by 22% a year, which is very good. Why are people paying more taxes? I mean, you all know that, right? Why do people paying more taxes? Because people have become more honest, people are earning more money, and because all the details are captured by IT and technology and AI, right? And everything is available, right? See, I think you're all wise people, so you can see the difference here. Next. And this is an interesting slide. The CAGR growth rate 23-25 is 22% in income tax. In 25-26, if you've grown at 22%, it should have been 15 lakhs collection. Revised budget is 13 lakh crore, that is what they're collecting. And 25-26 budget was 14.38 lakh crore, they're collecting less. That means the giveaway is actually 1,90,000, 2 lakh crores. The finance minister budgeted 16% growth in income tax in 26, as against 22% CAGR over the last 3 years, and only achieved 6%. It's probable that 2 lakh crores was the impact against 1 lakh crore earlier stated. Thank God the income tax people don't calculate properly. At least we got greater benefits. Next. And this is interesting. This is there in the budget. This is there in the budget document called receipts budget. And please see, this is tax terrorism. At the end of the reporting year 24-25, total taxes in dispute is 15.76 lakh crores, out of which I think 80% is in the last 5 years. They created disputes, tax disputes. They raised demands against all of you, right? And all of you go in appeal and, have a jolly good time. Now, in addition to that, there is 19 lakh crores of amounts not under dispute. What is the amount not under dispute? Amount not under dispute means demand raised where the assessee is not available and assets are not available. is pure fiction. And it is there in the budget documents. Please read the statement. Receipts budget. And this is not debated in parliament. Nobody writes about it. We wrote about this, Christian and I wrote about it for the last 5 years. Every year we write 4-5 articles on tax terrorism. When Jaitley said he'll remove tax terrorism in 2014, before they came to power, the total amount of tax dispute was 4.67 lakh crores. Now it's gone to 17 lakh crores. Removal of tax terrorism means increased tax terrorism. And see this, nobody is bothered. I went to meet Prime Minister and told him, these are all the things, you must remove it. And then he asked for some suggestion, gave some suggestion, they raised the amount of appeal to Supreme Court, 5 crores and all that. From 1 crore, twice they raised it. But this is the problem. This is, because of this, cost of capital is high. Why is cost of capital high? If a foreigner comes, he demands 12% return, because if he puts in government bond, he gets 6.5%. 4.5% is the India risk premium. And one of the risk premium is income tax. Because your tax assessment are not done for 10, 15, 20 years. And this is the biggest problem that India has. And the data is there. Vaitheeswaran, data is there. Nobody says. Next. Okay, Padam, all yours.
There are some interesting statements to take forward what Mohan is saying. Look at there are 2 documents worth seeing. Referring to the receipt budget and all of that. Along with the budget, there is one additional document given this year in terms of highlights of the budget. There are some statements there at the top, very interesting statements. And there are certain statements in the economic survey also worth reading. Because Mohan is talking about tax terrorism, how much of money is locked in the budget. Economic survey says the best dispute is, what is the best way of solving a dispute? To never have a dispute. This is the economic survey statement. The best dispute is that which never begins. There is a statement in the highlight of the budget concern which says, good governance is making life easier for its citizens. There's an interesting statement which says, India must be a trusted partner and a predictable partner in global commerce. Must be trusted and a predictable partner in global commerce. And therefore it says, when trust leads, compliance follows. When trust leads, compliance follows. With the background of all of this, therefore we are seeing now what the FM is, certain proposals of the FM in the budget this time. There is a safe harbor rule for software companies. All of them are now bracketed into an ITES segment only, information technology segment. They're going to have a lower TDS by a rule-driven process, not by an application concern. There should be a faster unilateral process. APS will be in a fast-track process. Taxation and buyback. This is going to be a sensitive topic. Siddharth will have good fun on this matter. We'll have Siddharth to comment on this matter, to say that he made some comments already. What was supposed to be actually capital gains was reclassified as dividends. And now they come back with saying we'll call it capital gains, but additional tax for corporate promoters and 22%. And if you're a private non-corporate promoter, we'll have 30% tax. Lastly, restoring the dividend tax itself, but calling it capital gains itself. Next. Tax holiday to those companies that are providing cloud services up to 2047. But then it's important that these have to provide services to Indian customers through an Indian reseller entity. Amazon and Flipkart are possibly going to rejig their business models by saying that I'm going to take a tax holiday on this matter. Extremely important. This is an extremely important statement. Are you going to have, therefore, this large players concerned taking a tax holiday by redoing the work, having an Indian person appoint as a reseller concerned and have a tax holiday? Safe harbor of 15%. We have already seen that safe harbor is already there. It's 15.5% to be precise. STT increased, and that's the reaction of the market concern. All prices went below. The FM said, I want to have the break on the speculative transaction, therefore I'm increasing the STT, but the market didn't accept it well. Therefore, we had 10 lakh crores being wiped out. MAT is proposed to be made final tax. This is an extremely interesting statement concern. We're going to have an alternate mechanism. How they're going to go about it is an extremely interesting aspect concern. And MAT that you carried forward from an earlier year will be available for you against set off against the corporate tax liability. 103 amendments at a point of time when you thought the 61 Act was going away, nothing to be done, and the new Act is coming yet to be enforced. So the new Act is yet to come. 1/4/26 it will come. It's yet to come. Old Act is dying on 31st of March 2026. So there's actually no need for making an amendment either in the old Act or in the new Act. You're having 103 amendments now.
In the old Act or the new Act?
Both. Combination of both.
87 in the new one.
87 in the new one?
87
yeah, 87 amendments in the new one. Yet to be operational. From 1st of April, it's going to be operational now.
I have a reason for that.
No. They are making a statement that some of the amendments are because of policy changes that were not contemplated originally. And they're justifying some statements. But it's extremely important to understand that we're having 103 amendments. We'll have to look at the language and how the amendments are going about. Next. So we're having some reduction of TCS rates on overseas tour packages, sale of immovable property to a non-resident concern, how you're going to discharge the TDS. Foreign asset disclosure is going to be an immunity scheme for those people who are tech people who have not disclosed either the foreign incomes or the foreign assets at a low value, not very high people, people having a limited amount of foreign assets or foreign income not disclosed. They're going to combine assessment and penalty into a single order. Again, a very unique amendment concern. Some of the penalties are going to be converted to fines. And the prepayment tax, Mohan was talking about the higher amount of disputes being raised. The law said, I'll give you a stay if you're making 20%. They're saying, I'll reduce the 10%, but there's no promise I'll reduce the disputes. There's no promise there. And next. So, we begin with Siddharth on the aspect of the messing up of buyback tax and come to Vaitheeswaran on the aspect of disputes and also on general trends of tax buoyancy.
Yeah, so I think the buyback tax is something, the context of buyback tax is actually very important to understand the leaps of logic that the government has actually taken. From the Finance Act of 1999, there was always this massive dispute about whether the distribution of accumulated profits constitutes a dividend or whether it was done through a buyback, it could actually be a capital gains event. I think at that point in time, Section 222 of the Act 1961 also had to be amended to end up actually giving credence to that. After that, like any good amendment, there was always a small risk of abuse, and Mauritius is one of the greatest avenues of abuse that the tax department has. I think there's a love loss between the Mauritius authorities and the Indian tax authorities, and especially when it comes to private equity and venture capital, for that matter. In 2013, there was a landmark case in the Supreme Court also, which saw people abusing the Mauritius route when it came to actually disguising their dividend payments out as buyback, for that matter, which is why the law also changed at a point in time. To put the onus back on the company to say, any of the distributions you end up actually doing, you pay a 20% tax with some cess, everything, etc., to end up actually putting that. It happened for unlisted companies, happened to listed companies. 2024 is when the government went back and revised 25 years of amendments and changes to go back to the stance that the distribution of accumulated profits through any means whatsoever would actually constitute a dividend. Now, the impact it had of that, if we actually break it down, is actually simple. First, when it comes to any of the DTAs or any of the tax amendments, etc., there are distinct treatments for dividend, distinct treatment for capital gains. The government decided to say black is equal to white and paint everyone in the same law. That's number one. Two, if you look at basic finance theory also, there is no multiple afforded to the cash balance existing on a company. If I were to invest into company A, company B, company C, I would value the cash balance at cost. I would never actually attribute a premium to it. So when investors in the market end up actually seeing a large amount of cash sitting on the balance sheet, and the company has no avenue to end up actually investing or getting a return out of that, it becomes a drag on their return on capital, becomes a drag on return of assets, becomes a drag on almost every financial metric available. A prudent board would have to end up distributing that money, because if they are unable to find profitable avenues to invest that capital, it's better to release that capital back to investors, allow investors to find other avenues of investment in a free and open market. And that actually comes down for that matter. So that's a finance theory that also ends up actually playing out over there. Lastly, if you look at any sort of security pricing theory also, the price that you pay for a security is a combination of a variety of factors. Combination of the net worth, promoter quality, which industry they're operating in, the growth rates they have, whether they have any IP, any more defensibility, a large number of these factors. To isolate the factor of net worth and accumulated profits alone and to deem that to be dividend is patently absurd. And that's what the government has actually done. As I said previously also, a buyback by all definitions under Section 45 meets the criteria for capital gains. There is a capital asset which is a security. There is a transfer which is an extinguishment. The number of shares that are being bought back are extinguished. You have countries like the US and Singapore where stock can be bought back and actually held as treasury stock on the asset side of the balance sheet. India doesn't allow that. We have to extinguish that stock. And there is a gain. Despite everything actually meeting the definition of a capital gains, there are some babus who are sitting over there who believe that any profit that being distributed in any way or form is actually, it should actually be a dividend, which is also absurd. If you look at even the buyback component, when I sell a stock, the government can take the same logic and say, if let's say the book value of the stock is 100, I sell it at 150. Out of that particular 150 that I actually sold it for, 100 is actually dividend because it represents the accumulated net worth and profit of that particular company. 50 is actually the market risk or market premium that you have. That is the kind of absurdity that they've actually gone and built into this entire law. If you look at other investors, especially investors who've had a long-term tenure in India, the avenues of exit that we have are actually fairly limited compared to the rest of the world. You either go out through, M&A is broken, you have to go through NCLT, take a long period of time, payouts are exceptionally hard for that matter. IPO is one of the ways that's only recently become attractive as of now when you've seen a spate of IPOs happen. Buybacks were a fantastic way for a cash-rich company to actually distribute that income out and get people out. And for the government who's been trying to quote foreign investors to say we are a stable regime, we are predictable, to go back and change the basic tenets of finance is a violation of trust. And what is the amounts? The peak of buyback in India, which happened during FY 23-24, for that matter, was actually to the amount of 51,000 crores. When October 1st, 2024, when the law was actually amended, the amount dropped out to 8,000 crores. For 30% of 8,000 crores, which is a rounding off error on the size of the budget that we have, the government has actually dedicated time, effort, as well as harassment for the same. And that is the patent level of absurdity and micromanagement that actually predicates the tax department in the country. Nowhere else in the world do we have the tax administration, the tax policy, and revenue collection all vesting within the same organ of government itself. It's patently absurd. They set themselves a target, they create the laws to achieve that target, and then when they miss the target, they actually end up blaming the market and call all of us crooks over there. And you expect investors to end up actually paying attention to it. So the reversal we've seen as of now is actually good. We've gone back to how buybacks are treated across the rest of the world. But the stepmotherly treatment and the success tax actually placed is on founders, is on larger shareholders. And they have sowed the seeds of litigation over the next 5 years. We will see increased litigation when it comes to buyback. Because they will come back and say, if I as a fund have 3 vehicles that own it, and they are under common control, they will combine the shareholding of all the vehicles and say, because you have common control, all of you end up being one particular person. There's an AOP risk that applies, therefore the 10% applies. If I am an investment fund, an AIF, which is under section 115 UB, which is investment fund, does this apply on the shareholding I have? Does it apply on the shareholding of my ultimate investors? Because as an entity, I don't actually pay tax. My investors end up actually paying tax. How is that extrapolation going to happen? They can't end up clarifying it for the pure reason of the fact that if they end up giving this to AIFs, for that matter, there are people who are partnership firms, people who are family trusts who will go and make the same kind of argument to end up actually coming in there. So for the sake of this 8,000 crores, to show the myopic thinking, they've opened up the seed of litigation for a large number of people. And the question to ask is, if you as a founder end up actually holding a larger stake in the company, and you can't end up actually going through a buyback, the answer is why? What is the discrimination against a founder who's actually stopped work for this entire thing to end up actually putting that? And how would you calculate the 10%? If you look at the private equity in the startup world, ESOPs occupy anywhere between 5 to 15% of the cap table of the shares of the company. But the shares are never issued. But the shares end up actually being included for all the purpose of calculation of shareholding. Will the tax department look into that? If I have a convertible instrument, which converts not on a 1:1 ratio, but 1 is to, let's say, 1.5 or 2, how would they actually calculate the shareholding as of that point in time? These are just some of the questions that have actually come about. So with this particular law, the only benefit you will see is, yes, larger corporate companies may do buybacks. Promoters will not do buybacks. They'll figure out either large bulk transactions or some other way to end up doing it. You will see a large amount of structuring happen through promoter entities who will want to be de-recognized as a promoter, larger investors who will end up balkanizing their investments over a variety of this one. And the tax litigation number you put over there, I guarantee you in the next 5 years, you'll have a separate line item saying buyback litigation, which will end up actually having an amount there.
Padam, I'll take your question on tax disputes. I would say there are 3 primary reasons. Number 1, there is absolutely no respect for rule of law and judgments in this country. You have a law well laid down, you have a decision well laid down, ruling for a number of years, it is clearly applicable on the facts of the case. The assessing officer simply says, I will not follow it. He says that. And then you have to no choice but to go on, contest and stuff like that. And he says, some guy nice enough to say, I like you, your point is valid, your judgment is good, I have to give you relief, but I have a collection target. So going back to your earlier slide on numbers, they are estimating a jump back to 8.2 something % this year. How are they going to do the same 1 lakh crore, which 2 lakh crore is already given away? So there will be tax collection targets set which are artificial, which don't match the growth of the country, which will drive down from the top to the bottom, and there will be orders which are passed, adverse orders which are passed. Number 1. Number two, there are situations where rent seekers do not agree with you and you don't agree with them because you want to be honest on this entire scenario, and therefore they create a horrible artificial demand driving you all over the world, paying pre-deposit of 20%, at least in income tax is 20%, it's much more in indirect taxes. The third is from the lawmaker itself. Take mutuality as a concept. Doctrine of mutuality, well settled from Semsworth days to all those case laws, and then it came up in VAT and service tax, and Supreme Court settled in Calcutta Club saying that there is no way you can impose a VAT or a service tax because there are no two persons involved. The GST Council panicked and said that even though it's a service tax decision, it might be applicable to GST by all these consultants. Therefore, let's amend the GST law retrospectively and nullify mutuality and make a club taxable, make an association taxable. A residential welfare association has no business to pay GST. They collect something and pay it to the maintenance and garden and something like that. They don't make money in that. They just pay GST, collect the money as a contribution and pay it back. So they amended the law retrospectively, and now Kerala High Court has struck down that provision. Now I'm sitting on opinions, I don't know what to say. If I say, please follow the Kerala High Court judgment, then the question comes, what happens if Kerala High Court is reversed? Even if Kerala High Court is reversed by the Supreme Court, or Kerala High Court is confirmed by the Supreme Court, what prevents the Parliament to make one more amendment? So you take safari retreats, take so many other decisions. You don't have the ability to advise a client saying that Supreme Court decides, nothing else will happen. We'll have to say Supreme Court decides, but retrospective amendment will. That is the reason for the dispute.
No, and even the government, by the way, because the government is, the legislature bestowed with the power to actually create laws, the greatest abuse. For the best way to find out which are the Supreme Court cases important to the government, look at the next year's budget. There'll always be one or two lines over there which actually reverse a particular Supreme Court judgment. We've seen that happen in Vodafone, we've seen that happen in the Tiger case, we've seen that happen in so many of the other cases that are there. If you as an investor have to have a 10-year horizon to invest, you don't know what to end up actually relying on.
There are a number of amendments already, 5 at least, who are retrospective, getting over specific decisions itself, even this budget. Except where Yeah, we're coming to the end of it, therefore we'll have some on indirect tax. One slide on indirect tax, and Ark, if you have anything else also to add, please be free to add. Last slide on indirect tax. Yeah, and we can go on to all these matters again.
So there are a lot of attempts to improve.
We'll see the next slide and then get into. Yeah, we'll get into aspects. And this can also be taken into the last. Sure. Yeah. Next slide.
Indirect taxes. I shall now take up proposals related to indirect taxes. My proposals for customs and central excise aim to further simplify the tariff structure, support domestic manufacturing, promote export competitiveness, and correct inversion in duty. To continue weeding out long continuing customs duty exemptions, I propose to remove certain exemptions on items which are being manufactured in India or where the imports are negligible. Similarly, to further simplify the process of ascertaining the rate of duty applicable on a particular item, I propose to incorporate certain effective rates in various customs notifications to the tariff schedule itself.
We have seen this chart already, where Mohan was mentioning that indirect tax is at the historic low 4.3%. We've already seen this chart. Next slide. Yeah. Most of the amendments to indirect tax have happened outside because of the GST rationalization. So what the budget can do, tinker with only with largely customs duty, and we have a lot of items on customs duty. Customs duty to be removed on particular items concerned, which are manufactured for the purpose of particular industry, data centers and semiconductors and health industry. Some customs duty relief has been given. We also have certain reduction of rate tariffs on particular items concerned. Extend the validity period of advance ruling binding customs from 3 years to 5 years concerned. There are certain aspects on SEZ policies concerned to say that we are going to give you some benefits for SEZs. Interestingly, therefore, some portions of this aspect of indirect taxes are not in cohesion with the aspect of direct taxes. What you're going to emphasize here are not necessarily those that are resonating in the direct taxes concerned. Possibly there should have been some sort of a coordination. It's not visible at all, therefore. And next. So we are also at the background of the aspect of the tariff war that we're seeing outside. We're also having the trade agreement being entered into. with the background of all of this concern, and we also have some sort of a statement being made for a number of years now in terms of the inverted duty structure being rectified a little. We're also having statements on the price competitiveness effect on by virtue of the indirect taxes concerned. With the background, Vaitheswaran, what is this in terms of the impact? How do these indirect tax proposals help in promoting exports, boost domestic manufacturing, increase tax collections? Would they therefore have some aspect of compliance ease, or are they going to therefore lead to difficulties?
There is a plus and minus. If you look at plus in some of the aspects, they are looking at some kind of a trust-based system for faster clearances. So, like you have the AUO system, they're going to expand that a little more, whereby certain kinds of categories of assessees who will, as soon as the goods get dispatched from abroad, when the papers are filed there, it will get automatically triggered here and the goods will come back to the factory. That kind of trust-based system is well taken. They're also looking at warehouse-to-warehouse kind of movement being without permissions, which is again relaxing and ease of doing business. So there are some aspects of that which will definitely trigger some kind of ease of doing business. One key change in GST which they did was in the context of intermediaries who are located in India. They act on behalf of foreign party and transact between foreign party and other party and receive a commission. Even though the commission comes in dollars, it was taxed in India at 18%. So it was being unfair, and therefore they changed the law to place of supply to make it export and zero rated. So that those kind of beneficial things they've done. But going back to your first point on customs, as you rightly said, they do the tinkering with the customs. But customs notification itself is an art. To understand a customs notification requires English memory and some degree of patience. Because if you look at the way it will start, in exercise of powers conferred under section so-and-so of the Act, read with section so-and-so of the Act, in supersession of notification number so-and-so, so-and-so, and in partial supersession of notification number so-and-so, so-and-so, in notification number so-and-so, the following shall be amended. So you need to have everything on your table to have some kind of picture on that. And some exemption notifications came in the last 2 years saying that this will lapse by 1/4/26, this will lapse by 1/4/27, etc., etc. Similarly, this year also, you have 1/4/26, 1/8/26, and so on and so forth. So just like 2047, you also have exemption notifications which are dated. So you have to remember when it goes. You may as well tell, no, it is going now, or, at that point of time you can issue notification. There is no necessity for budget to use this. This is an exercise of a central government executory power. There is no necessity for budget to do these things, but somehow they bring this into the budget. But some interesting things have happened for fishing. Beautiful amendment they have done, whereby they said, you can go up to 200 nautical miles and fish and bring it back. We don't look at it in a fishy way. We'll not treat it as import, and we'll give you the benefit. Those kind of things they've done to encourage some kind of interest.
Okay, yes.
I think a couple of things. I think this couple of interesting things have happened. I think this is something to do also with what's going on with the US and all. First, the fishery is very interesting. They are saying if you fish outside India's economic zone and you even go to the another port, which I think is happening with a neighboring country, this is what I've heard, is considered totally export. So you don't have to worry about it. Second, I think important thing what has happened is essentially the import of capital goods. Because a lot of companies who are moving the factories to India from Vietnam and China and all that, they want to remove their assembly lines from there and bring to India. We're putting custom duty on that. Now that was ridiculous because I'm using my old machinery and then of course our guy will decide what is the real value and true value and all. They put it at depreciated value or zero value, whatever. So that has been removed. That for 5 years, whatever you bring for the capital goods, because there manufacturing will not come. Nobody is going to put the new assembly line here not knowing what's the demand and things like that. Third, I think some concession which I have given on certain items like almond and walnuts and all that, which obviously purely is California driven. Our country is using too many almonds and walnuts and cashews. Supposedly we are not growing fast enough than the consumption. So supposedly even if it comes from, it may not impact our domestic crops very much. Similarly, a few other things have done. Essentially, mining company, they have given exemptions for the rare earth mining company. Exemptions have been given. So those are strategic nuclear tech, which is again coming from the US. So they have whatever. So now you can see, I think that Trump also said yesterday that soon we might have a tariff deal with the US, because whatever US wanted, rather than putting into the tariff, they have brought it through the budget. Not many people are kind of opposing this. So this is how I think they are going to accommodate the request from the US.
Yeah, manufacturers come. Okay, last one, final question. Finance Minister, we want to bid you goodbye.
India will continue to take confident steps towards Vikasit Bharat, balancing ambition with inclusion. As a growing economy with expanding trade and capital needs, India must also remain deeply integrated with global markets, exporting more and attracting stable long-term investment.
So this is the end of the budget. Now, quick answer from each one of you. Has the FM student chosen prudence or adventurism in the budget? Will it enable Indian industry tide over global uncertainties? Do they carry forward the high growth path of the past 4 years?
First one answer is yes. Definitely prudence over adventurism. But I don't think the budget is designed to deal with the tariffs. The tariffs are a separate vehicle which we have to deal with separate. We can't do anything. We can only look at FTAs and stuff like that to help. We can probably look at faster refunds and accelerate cash flows in the hands of exporters. We can't do anything more than that. And high growth plan of past 4 years, yes, momentum will continue.
Yeah, Sid?
Yeah, I think the beauty of a balanced budget is it leaves everyone equally annoyed. So this budget is also delivered on that factor for that. Enable industry try to
Angry young man.
Yes, huh? Hungry young man. Does this budget enable industry to tide over global uncertainties? The answer is no. I think there's a lot more that has to be done, but thankfully the government no longer looks at the budget as the only avenue to fiscally support the entire nation. They want to do it over the year, which is also prudent on their part. Will the budget proposals support carry forward growth? No. This is a very maintenance budget. So for actual growth to happen, a large number of the issues we discussed today have to be removed. And that hopefully will happen to the Jan Vishwas bill that they're doing or some of the other bills that they're actually going through.
RK, last word.
So I think I agree with this budget is primarily the maintenance budget. They don't want to tinker too much. Things are sailing, but whatever reforms needs to be done has to be structural reforms and fundamental reforms. Because the train is moving at the fastest speed it can. What you need to fix is the rails, signals and everything else. And that's what is hampering the growth. So I think those are the reforms which needs to be needed. Budget alone can't do much.
Thank you very much. And the last point, this is put by Krishnan. Okay, I disown paternity of this. Padamchand, I disown paternity. This Krishnan's mischief. The Krishnan mischief. So folks, we come to the end of a very nice program.
There was one better last year. FM telling, hey, I've given you so much of relief. What do you want? What more you want? The taxpayer saying, I want incomes.
I've given you relief, but I want income. Okay. So I want to thank RK Misra for coming here and spending time. Vaitheeswaran coming from Chennai, thank you very much. You traveled a long way. We're very grateful to you. And Siddharth, thank you very much for elucidating your views, wonderful views. Both of us want to thank all of you for coming here, spending so much time and waiting till the end. I want to thank the Institute. This is the 33rd year. 33rd year we are doing this together. And we had a fabulous audience. And I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much and goodbye. Folks, please wait. Institute has to give vote of thanks officially. I'm sorry. Please wait. Please wait. Yeah, and I want to thank Krishnan and his team. Krishnan and the team has done all the R&D work. They didn't sleep the whole of the night, got all the data, put it up in this beautiful form. Krishnan and his team have been working together for the last how many years, Krishnan? 30 years? 33 years. Please give them a big hand. Thank you, Krishnan. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, team.
Right, sir, I think so they got confused because you said the vote. I already thanked once they started moving out. Yeah. Now, we have a felicitations for moderators, Padamchand, Khincha sir and Mohandas Pai sir. I request, and the management committee team, the regional council members, please to join us on the dais for the felicitation. Members, parallelly, I would like to go with the vote of thanks. Yeah. Before I give my vote of thanks, I would like to say that on 27th and 28th, KSEA has an annual conference to be held at Prestige what is that? Prestige Performing Arts Hall. Please do register yourselves and please do spread it across the fraternity members so that they can take advantage of it. So, respected Chairman and the dignitaries on the dais, the members, students and all participants, good evening. On behalf of ICA Bangalore branch, it is my proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks for today's awareness program analysis on Union Budget 26-27. I request MC members to join them for the felicitation. I express my sincere thanks to the Chairman Manjunath Hallur for presiding over the program and making it meaningful and impactful. We are deeply honored by the presence of the valuable time of our distinguished moderators and panelists. I convey my heartfelt thanks to CA V Mohandas Pai for his insightful moderation and strategic perspective, CA Padamchand Khincha for his lucid analysis on practical viewpoints, Mr. R.K. Misra for enriching the discussions with broader economic and policy insights, Advocate K. Vaitheeswaran for the clear interpretation on the legal and tax implications, and CA Siddharth Pai for bringing in contemporary finance and industry-oriented understanding of the budget. Your perspectives have helped us decode. I request Chairman to present the mementos to R.K. Misra, sir. Yeah. Now I call upon Vaitheeswaran, sir. So now I call upon Siddharth Pai. We would also request few members who have contributed to this session to please come on the dais. CA S. Krishnan sir, CA Mayank Manot, CA Sriram RD, CA Ravi Sidula, CA Shweta Davadiga, and CA Hari Krishna D. I request the Chairman to do the honors. Members, these are the people who are behind the presentation. They have been doing it from last 30 years. And we need to have a round of applause. Also, I further record our deep sense of appreciation to the management committee members, past chairmen of Bangalore branch and the branch team for planning, coordinating and seamlessly executing the event. With these words, I once again thank everyone for being part of the program. We look forward to your continued participation in the knowledge initiatives of the Bangalore branch. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.